Chapter 302. Go to watch net. Li Yundong suddenly saw that the golden python was about to swallow him. He was shocked and angry. Relying on the amazing speed of his Yin spirit, he dodged it in an instant. Go to watch net. 7 K.O. Hong N.O. Li Yundong saw that the golden snake was as fast as a yellow bolt of lightning. If it weren't for the fact that he was a Yin spirit, he would have been swallowed by the golden python just now. He was about to shout angrily when he saw another golden body come out of the cave and turn into a human form. It was the yellow-clothed woman who had led Li Yundong here before. She shouted anxiously to the huge golden python beside her, "Husband, this is our benefactor. What are you doing?" The huge golden python stopped and stared at Li Yundong with its bell-like eyes. It said coldly and ferociously, "So what if he is our benefactor? He came to help us out of selfishness. Humph, these human beings are the most greedy, vicious, and selfish ones. Why is it unforgivable for us to kill them, while they kill us to enforce justice on behalf of heaven? Why?" Li Yundong said angrily, "You be **starred, you can't distinguish between good and evil, right from wrong. Have you cultivated for 100 years been in vain?" The huge golden python laughed and said, "All living things in the world are equal. Isn't this also the slogan of you human beings? But in the end, aren't you guys the butcher and the good guy at the same time? Who would believe your lies? I think you are a good person because you are greedy and coveting my Naiden and my wife's. You are not a good person either. You want my Naiden? Well, come and get it from my stomach." As it spoke, it shrank back and then pounced on Li Yundong like lightning. Li Yundong saw that there was a red-crowned sarcoma on the top of the golden python's head. Its upper and lower jaws were large, and its bloody mouth could even swallow a tiger in an instant. It also spat out a mouthful of poisonous gas. Before it reached him, he could already smell the fishy smell. Li Yundong knew that although he was a Yin spirit, if he was swallowed by the other party, his Yin spirit would be refined immediately. He was shocked and angry. Just as he was about to dodge, he saw that the woman in yellow beside him had also turned into a golden python, but her body was slightly smaller and shorter. She anxiously entangled the python and said, "Husband, calm down. This is our benefactor." The giant python shook its body and swung its tail, shaking off the yellow-clothed woman who had transformed into a golden python. It shouted angrily, "Get lost. It won't be too late to let me devour this fellow first." If Li Yundong had the fan of 7 treasures in his hand, he would have been able to fight with this golden python. But at this time, his Yin spirit was wandering, so how could he defeat this golden python? He had saved the 2 snake demons out of kindness, but he had been bitten back. The anger in his heart could not be any greater. He wanted to turn into a cyan light and leave, but he heard Zi Yuan's voice transmission, "Li Yundong, lead them to the entrance of the cave. You have the body of Yin spirit, so you can get into the mountain." Li Yundong's heart skipped a beat, and he immediately flew to the cave. Go to the net. 7 K.O.M. As soon as he thought of this, he flew to the entrance of the cave and got into it. Although the entrance was very small, the inside was huge. At first, Li Yundong's vision was blocked by the rocks and soil, but soon he found that the cave was huge, making him feel suddenly enlightened. As soon as Li Yundong got into the cave, he saw the huge golden python following him like a shadow, chasing after him aggressively. Its body was extremely long, at least 40 to 50 meters long, and its waist was about 1.5 meters thick. It was like a golden dragon swimming on the ground. Li Yundong couldn't help but gasp when he saw it. He thought to himself, no wonder it said that snakes are the sons of dragons. It's not without reason. However, although this golden python was big, it still seemed very small after getting into the cave. After a while, the golden python that the yellow-clothed woman had transformed into chased after him. The two snakes were moving and dodging in the cave, but the cave still seemed very empty. Li Yundong took advantage of the moment and the two golden snakes were entangled again and immediately flew out of the cave. Seeing that Li Yundong wanted to escape, the huge golden python immediately roared, "Where are you going?" The sound shook the stone walls of the cave and made them rustle down. Li Yundong saw that the entrance of the cave was getting narrower and narrower, and the golden python behind him was getting closer and closer. He suddenly jumped out of the cave. Just as the golden python was about to jump out, Ziyuan suddenly appeared at the entrance of the cave. She pinched her fingers together at lightning speed and patted the entrance of the cave with her fingers. With a boom, a few strange runes quickly burned beside Ziyuan's palm, turning into a purple enchantment that firmly sealed the golden snake inside. The golden python was trapped inside and frantically struggled against the boundary, causing the entire mountain to tremble slightly. Its pair of cold golden eyes made people's hair stand on end. Ziyuan said loudly to Li Yundong, Go back to your body." Li Yundong nodded, and the two of them instantly turned into two beams of blue light and flew back. By the time they returned to their own bodies, the sky was beginning to turn white, and it was a little bright. Su Chan and the others, who were guarding Li Yundong's body, immediately jumped up when they saw Li Yundong's Yin spirit return. They were furious and said, "This bastard, I'm going to skin it." Ziyuan also stood up and said with a serious face, "We have to get to the entrance of the cave immediately. This boundary can only last for 1 day. If we get there late, I'm afraid that the two golden snakes will break through and hurt the innocent." Su Chan, Ruan Hongling, and Zhou Qin, who were next to them, didn't know what had happened to them. They looked at them with confused faces. Su Chan had rarely seen Li Yundong so angry. She pulled his sleeve timidly and asked in a low voice, "Yundong, what's wrong with you?" Li Yundong snorted heavily and told them what had happened. Suddenly, Su Chan, Ruan Hongling, and Zhou Qin all looked angry. Su Chan said loudly, "I can't believe there are such ungrateful people in this world. It's really hateful." Ruan Hongling cast a sidelong glance at her and sneered, "Ungrateful monster. Why are you looking at me?" Su Chan said angrily. Ruan Hongling retorted sarcastically, "If you don't look at me, how do you know I'm looking at you? Or are you feeling guilty?" Su Chan was furious. Just as she was about to roll up her sleeves and argue with Ruan Hongling, Li Yundong shouted, "Stop arguing. Su Chan, you stay here. Ziyuan and I will go and deal with these two bastards." "No, I want to go too." Su Chan shouted. "I want to go too." Ruan Hongling also said, "I want to go too. Sister Ziyuan, I can help." Li Yundong knew that Su Chan and Ruan Hongling were not weak. Even if they couldn't help, they could protect themselves. He pondered for a moment, then nodded and agreed. Watch net. Li Yundong looked at Zhou Qin, only to see that she was staring at him, her eyes full of hope. Li Yundong couldn't help but say awkwardly, "Zhou Qin, you haven't officially started cultivating. Not to mention the Zhuji phase, you haven't even passed the first heaven. You can only stay here and wait for us." There was disappointment in Zhou Qin's eyes, but she still smiled, nodded, and said, "Well, I'll wait for you here." Li Yundong smiled apologetically at Zhou Qin, then flew out quickly with Ziyuan, Su Chan, and Ruan Hongling with a sullen face. Zhou Qin watched the four of them leave together. For a moment, she was the only one left in the stone room. She felt lost, and her expression was gloomy. However, she was competitive and determined. After a while, she clenched her fists and swore in her heart, "Sooner or later, I, Zhou Qin, will surpass Ziyuan and become the #1 female cultivator in the world." Li Yundong didn't know that Zhou Qin had made a vow in her heart and was determined to devote herself to cultivation. He flew at the fastest speed in anger. When the sky began to brighten, they had already flown to the place where the golden snake was trapped. The thunderstorm summoned by Zi Yuan came and went quickly. When Li Yundong arrived, the sky was still cloudy, but there were no thick dark clouds like last night. Before Li Yundong and the others landed in the air, they saw that the foot of the mountain was already surrounded by people. Li Yundong's heart skipped a beat and he looked at Zi Yuan. Zi Yuan said in a low voice, "It seems that they are all from the secular world. Let's go down and see what's going on." Li Yundong nodded. The group found a remote place to land and quickly came to the foot of the mountain. Before they got close, they saw a construction team busy at the foot of the mountain. Because there were many secular people, most cultivators did not show up. There were two people standing next to an excavator. One of them was wearing a yellow safety helmet, and the other was wearing the white gloves that drivers usually wore. The man wearing the white gloves said loudly, "Foreman Zhang, I'm not looking for an excuse. I really dreamed that there were two golden snakes fighting last night. When I went back to sleep this morning, I dreamed that a snake warned me not to come." As he spoke, the villagers next to him also said, "Yes, yes, I also dreamed of it. Yes, last night, the sky and earth shook, and then there was wind and thunder. It was so scary. Foreman, we'd better not dig. It's unlucky." The foreman surnamed Zhang shouted, "Do you have the final say or do I have the final say? Hurry up and get to work." When the villagers heard this, they became anxious and stepped forward to persuade him. While these people were quarreling, a voice suddenly came from the side. "What's going on?" The foreman surnamed Zhang looked back and saw his boss looking at him with a briefcase under his arm. Next to him stood an old man with a ruddy complexion. Next to the old man stood a tall and beautiful woman. They were Zheng Yuan and Ding Nan. The foreman surnamed Zhang glanced greedily at Ding Nan, then said to his boss with a flattering smile, "Manager Shen, why are you here?" Manager Shen snorted. "Why aren't you starting work? Don't you see that the guests next to me are urging us to hurry up?" The foreman surnamed Zhang smiled obsequiously. He took out a pack of cigarettes from his arms, pulled out a few, and handed them to Zheng Yuan. Zheng Yuan raised his palm, shook his head, and said lightly, "Hurry up and get to work. I'm paying for it. I'm not letting you talk here." The foreman surnamed Zhang's smile widened when he was refused. He nodded and bowed. Okay, let's get to work immediately." After that, when he turned around, his face was already ferocious and arrogant. He roared loudly, "Get to work. If you don't, you won't get your salary this month." His roar immediately deterred the workers in the engineering team and made them leave resentfully. The driver wearing white gloves had no choice but to climb onto the excavator and start the engine. At this time, Li Yundong, Zi Yuan, and the others, who were watching from a distance, all saw the clues. Chapter 303. Go to watch net. Li Yundong and Zi Yuan shouted, and the two of them instantly chased after the fleeing golden python. Ruan Hongling and Su Chan did not dare to delay and followed closely behind. Go to watch net. Li Yundong originally thought that he would have to chase it for a long time, but he didn't expect that the giant python would only jump to the top of the mountain, then turn into a human form and stand in front of a huge rock, motionless. Li Yundong turned his head and made a gesture to Zi Yuan, Su Chan, and Ruan Hongling. The four of them landed in four directions and surrounded the golden snake. "Let's see where you can run now." Li Yundong snorted. Zi Yuan said lightly, "Since you didn't hurt any innocent people just now, I'll spare your body." Su Chan also said angrily, "You don't know what's good for you, you stinky snake. My Yundong was kind enough to save you, but you actually want to eat him?" Ruan Hongling had always hated evil, so she didn't say anything more. She directly took out the red silk magical item and stared at it covetously. This golden python was the male golden python that had wanted to swallow Li Yundong before. After transforming into a human form, he was also a handsome young man. He stood there with tears streaming down his face. He looked at Su Chan, then at Li Yundong and the others. He laughed bitterly, but his tears kept falling. The golden python pointed at Li Yundong and said loudly, "You humans have always wanted to kill us. What's wrong with me wanting to kill you? Although my wife is a demon, she is kind and has never harmed a human life. She knew that humans were going to dig up our nest, so she took the initiative to rush out and cover my escape. Who would have thought that I would be killed by a sinister and shameless sneak attack? How dare you blame me?" Before Li Yundong had time to speak, Su Chan said angrily, "That was a sneak attack by others. What does it have to do with us?" The golden python roared, "What's the difference? When we demons kill a human, you say that all the demons in the world are bad. In our opinion, aren't all human beings in the world evil?" Hearing this, Su Chan's whole body trembled, and for a moment, she was speechless. After the golden python finished roaring, its resentment seemed to have dissipated a lot. It stood in front of a huge rock on the top of the mountain and gently stroked the surface of the rock with its hand. With tears streaming down its face, it said, "My wife and I have been cultivating for 100 years. I didn't expect to encounter such a disaster. Now that my wife died to cover my escape, what's the point of me living alone?" As he spoke, he let out a loud roar, lowered his head, and slammed into the boulder. In the blink of an eye, the top of his skull split open, and blood splattered on the surface of the boulder. Watch net. 7 KOM. Li Yunyang's face was full of shock, and the anger on his face suddenly disappeared. Zi Yuan and Ruan Hongling, who were beside him, were also moved. They looked at the golden python in disbelief and were speechless. Li Yundong walked up to the golden python and said in a deep voice with a pained expression, "Do you have any last words?" The top of the golden python's skull had been smashed, but it didn't die for a while. However, it could only breathe out, not in. It reluctantly looked at Li Yunyang and struggled to say in a low voice, "I only hate myself for being greedy and trying to taint the Medicine King tripod and the immortal pen. Now that I think about it, it's too late to regret it. If you are really a good person, please bury me with my wife's body. I was born with her, but I can't die with her. I can't die in peace." As he struggled to speak, he spat out a mouthful of blood and said weakly, I hope I won't be a demon in my next life." After that, the golden python's body shook and its eyes widened. After taking its last breath, it finally stopped breathing. Su Chan couldn't help but feel sad for her own kind. She threw herself into Li Yundong's arms and said with tears streaming down her face, "Yundong, don't hate him anymore, okay?" Li Yundong sighed in his heart. He gently held the little girl's waist and sighed. Death is like a lamp going out. What hatred can't be resolved? Su Chan raised her head with tears in her eyes. "I'm so afraid that one day we will become like this." Li Yundong smiled slightly and stroked the little girl's head lovingly. "Don't be silly. If anyone dares to touch you, even if he is the Jade Emperor, I will destroy his whole family." Li Yundong's words were soft, but there was a murderous intent in them, and there was a faint sense of extremely strong confidence and firm will. Hearing this, Su Chan couldn't help but feel a lot less anxious and sad. She raised her head and looked at Li Yundong in a daze. She only felt that with this boy by her side, she didn't have to be afraid even if the sky fell down. The little girl gave a heavy hum, and there was a strong sense of attachment and lingering in her eyes. The two of them looked at each other and didn't care that there were other people next to them. For a moment, they were stunned. Although Wan Hongling hated evil, people's hearts were made of flesh after all. When she saw the golden python die for love, the anger in her heart dissipated a lot. She walked to Zi Yuan's side and whispered, "Sister Zi Yuan, what should we do now?" Zi Yuan raised her head and looked at Li Yundong and Su Chan. For a moment, her expression was a little complicated. After a while, she came to her senses. She sighed softly and said with a sigh, I don't know either. Go to the internet. 113 Shui 4 net. Wan Hongling said softly, Sister Zi Yuan, have you heard the news that the Immortal Pen and the Medicine King tripod are going to appear? Zi Yuan hesitated for a moment and said, I've heard some rumors, but the Immortal Pen is a magical item of Wuxia during the Three Kingdoms period. It has been more than 1,800 years since it disappeared. I don't believe that a magical item that has disappeared for so many years will appear again. The Medicine King tripod is even more frightening. It is the alchemy magical item of Sun Simiao, the king of medicine. It is said that Sun Simiao once used it to refine 3 elixirs of life at the same time. Wan Hongling took a deep breath and said involuntarily, 3 elixirs of life can be refined at the same time in one furnace? How is that possible? Zi Yuan also nodded and said, I don't believe it either. After all, it's just a legend, but the Medicine King tripod is a necessary magical item to refine the 3 elixirs of life. After the birth of Renyuan Jindan a few days ago, I suspected that the Medicine King tripod had also appeared. Now it seems that the news of the birth of the Medicine King tripod may be true. The two of them were whispering. At this time, Li Yundong had already come over with Su Chan in his arms. He asked in confusion, what is true? After Zi Yuan told them what they had said, she said, regardless of whether the birth of the Immortal Pen is true or not, at least we can be sure that the birth of the Medicine King tripod is most likely true. Zi Yuan sighed and said, alas, since the birth of Renyuan Jindan, the cultivation world, which was originally calm, has begun to be turbulent. In order to compete for Renyuan Jindan, the masters of all the major sects fought on Mount Gazao. Even Wan Zhenyuan, the leader of the Gazao sect, was forced to flee from Mount Gazao. I really don't know what kind of bloody storm will be set off once the Medicine King tripod is born. Wan Hongling looked at Li Yundong and suddenly said to Zi Yuan with a smile, I think that ever since this guy stepped into the cultivation world, the world has been in chaos. Could it be that this guy is a devil who has descended to the world? Zi Yuan glared at her and said, don't talk nonsense. Li Yundong didn't care. He thought for a while and said, although this golden python attacked me first, it died for love. It's moving. Let's bury him with his wife. After Li Yundong said this, Wan Hongling, who had been very hostile to the snake demon, didn't say anything. The group flew to the foot of the mountain under the cover of the woods. At this time, the foot of the mountain was in chaos. Some people were controlling the excavator to lift the dead golden snake high, and others were taking pictures with their mobile phones. After the foreman, manager, and Zheng Yuan at the foot of the mountain whispered to each other for a while, the manager took out his mobile phone and made a phone call. After a while, a truck came from the mountain and a driver jumped out. Foreman Zhang shouted, get out of the way, get out of the way. This snake is going to be sent to the research institute. Get out of the way. Someone pointed at the driver who had fallen to the ground and shouted, Leader Zhang, hurry up and take him to the hospital. Maybe he can still be saved. Foreman Zhang looked at the driver and said impatiently, isn't he already out of breath? A villager touched his chest and said loudly, he's still breathing. His heart is still beating. Hurry up and send him to the hospital. Maybe he can still be saved. Foreman Zhang frowned and said, then we'll send him later. Call 120 for a taxi later. When the villagers heard this, they were all angry. They surrounded him and shouted, how can you be like this? You don't save a living person, but send a dead snake to them. Do you think that a living person's life is less important than a dead snake? Seeing that the crowd was angry, Foreman Zhang shouted in panic, what do you want to do? Do you want to rebel? The villagers were so angry that they surrounded the car tightly. "Don't even think about leaving if you don't save him." Foreman Zhang panicked and turned to look at the manager not far away. The manager was also scared and turned to look at Zheng Yuan. Zheng Yuan smiled kindly and said, "It's just one person. Take him with you. It's no big deal." Only then did the villagers' anger turn into joy. Seeing Zheng Yuan's youthful face and sage-like appearance, they all called him a living bodhisattva and a living immortal. The villagers hurriedly carried the golden python, which was dozens of meters long, onto the truck. Then, they also carried the driver onto the truck and put him together with the corpse of the golden snake. Then, a few villagers jumped onto the truck, patted it, and shouted, "We can go now." Zheng Yuan smiled and took Ding Nan to the front seat of the truck. The driver started the engine, and the car roared as it drove along the mountain road. Li Yunyang saw that there were too many mortals at the foot of the mountain, and it was not good for him to go out and rob them, so he said to Zi Yuan, "Let's follow them and wait for an opportunity on the way." "What do you think?" Zi Yuan nodded and said, "That's what I think too." The group of people didn't dare to get too close and just followed at a distance. The car drove along the mountain road. When it reached a rugged and remote place, the person behind the car suddenly patted the window in front and shouted, "This man is dead." Zheng Yuan looked back and saw that the driver was dead. He sighed and said, "He's dead. Let's not hurry. We've been driving for so long. Let's take a break and have a cigarette." The driver knew that Zheng Yuan was a big shot. Even the foreman and manager had to curry favor with him, so he was at least a rich man. He was overjoyed, turned off the engine, and said, "That's good." Zheng Yuan took out a pack of cigarettes from nowhere and handed it to the driver. The driver carefully took out a cigarette with both hands and lit it as if he had found a treasure. He took a puff and let out a long breath, as if what he had just inhaled was not a cigarette but immortal qi. Zheng Yuan squinted at Ding Nan and said, "Do you want one?" Ding Nan often went to all kinds of social places with Zhou Qin, so she was not afraid of smoking and drinking. She took out a cigarette casually, then took out the cigarette lighter on the car and was about to light it. At this time, Zheng Yuan squeezed Ding Nan's hand and winked at her, indicating that she should stay in the car and not get out. Ding Nan was stunned and didn't understand what Zheng Yuan meant. But before she could react, Zheng Yuan had already gotten out of the car. After greeting the driver and the villagers in the car, he gave them cigarettes with a smile on his face. The villagers smiled and went over to take the cigarettes, but the moment they got close, Zheng Yuan suddenly jumped up. His thumb, like an iron chisel, poked the villagers' temples. The temple was one of the fatal acupuncture points of the human body. Even an ordinary child could stab a living person to death, let alone a cultivator like Zheng Yuan. In the blink of an eye, the villagers fell to the ground without even making a sound. Ding Nan was so stunned that she didn't even notice that the lit cigarette in her mouth had fallen on her body. It wasn't until the cigarette butt burned her that she realized what had happened. She slapped the cigarette away, rushed out of the car, and asked in surprise, "Master, why did you kill them?" Zheng Yuan sneered. "If I hadn't killed them, how could I have taken this golden snake away?" Li Yundong, who had been following them from a distance, saw that Zheng Yuan had suddenly killed people. Even if he wanted to save them, he was too far away to do so. He suddenly became furious and rushed over quickly, shouting angrily, "Zheng Yuan, aren't you afraid of retribution and divine punishment, //7854627895541." Chapter 304. Go to watch net. Li Yundong's sudden appearance surprised Zheng Yuan, especially when Zi Yuan, Su Chan, Wan Hongling, and the others appeared behind him. He was shocked and felt that something was wrong. Go to watch net. Kai 98 when 1 Shui 0 net 6. If it was a one-on-one battle, Zheng Yuan believed that he was stronger than Li Yundong, but if Zi Yuan was added, then Zheng Yuan would have some doubts, especially when there was the three-tailed fox spirit and Wan Hongling from the Linggong sect of the Zhengyi school. Although Wan Hongling's cultivation was not high, the red silk magical item in her hand was not a joke. Zheng Yuan was experienced and knowledgeable, so of course he knew how powerful this magical item was. He also knew that he didn't have the virgin yang blood to break this magical item. He had to fight against 4 people alone, especially with Ding Nan, a burden who didn't know any magic, so he wanted to retreat. Seeing that he had been caught red-handed, Zheng Yuan didn't deny it. He just smiled slightly and said, "It turns out to be Zhenrenli. Do you also like this century-old golden python?" He rolled his eyes and said with a smile, "Zhenrenli, why don't you take the skin and scales of this golden snake, and I only want its meat? The skin and scales are a good treasure that is invulnerable to swords and spears, as well as water and fire. It will be very powerful if it is made into a Taoist robe or magical item." Li Yundong's face changed, and the anger in his eyes grew. Seeing Li Yundong's expression change, Zheng Yuan thought that he had seen through his wishful thinking. He chuckled and said, "What, Zhenrenli doesn't agree? Well, do you want the meat inside?" The meat of the century-old spirit snake is not only used to refine all kinds of elixirs, but also a good nourishing medicinal material. I'll suffer a loss. I want the skin, and you want the meat. How about that? Seeing that Li Yundong's face was becoming more and more ugly, Zheng Yuan frowned and said, "Zhenrenli, do you still want to compete with me for this Naiden? How about this? The snake's flesh, skin, and scales will all belong to you, but the Naiden will belong to me. How about that?" Seeing that he was bargaining as if it were a piece of cake, Li Yundong was furious. He said angrily, "You are the leader of a sect. How can you be so shameless, insidious, and vicious? You kill people without batting an eye. Aren't you afraid that killing these people will attract the heavenly tribulation?" Zheng Yuan said impatiently, "Zhenrenli, I only call you Zhenren because I respect you. Don't refuse a toast only to drink a forfeit. In terms of age, I'm a little older than your grandfather. It's not your turn to lecture me. I'm not killing people with Dharma treasures or Dharma spells, so why would I attract the heavenly tribulation?" Li Yundong said angrily, "B*****, you are really heartless. You have lived for so many years in vain." Zheng Yuan glanced at them and sneered, "Why? Are you a good person? And you, Zhenren Zi Yuan, why are you with the leader of the Fox Zen school?" "Humph, when Zhou Ping said that you colluded with Li Yundong, I didn't believe it, but now it seems to be true. If this were to spread out, it wouldn't sound too good. Hey, Zhenrenli, look at yourself. You're in cahoots with a vixen and a demon. How dare you criticize me? Heh, I think you're the shameless one." Li Yundong was so angry that the veins on his forehead bulged. He took a deep breath and made a gesture with one hand behind him. He slowly mobilized his Jinqi and prepared to attack Zheng Yuan. Watch net. 7 KOM. Seeing this gesture, Zi Yuan and the others quietly surrounded Zheng Yuan and Ding Nan from 3 other directions. Li Yundong looked at Ding Nan meaningfully and said, "Ding Nan, I didn't expect you to hang out with such a person. I advise you to quickly come over and repent before it's too late. Otherwise, you'll sink deeper and deeper." Li Yundong's words made Zheng Yuan's heart tighten. He narrowed his eyes and looked at Ding Nan, thinking to himself, "Ping'er has already changed her body. How could Li Yundong know her? The situation in front of me would be difficult to resolve. It would be fine if I was alone. If I couldn't defeat them, I could still run. But with Ping'er by my side, how could I escape?" It seemed like he had no choice but to bear the pain and leave Ping behind. Zheng Yuan looked at Ding Nan. As long as Ding Nan had the slightest intention of escaping, he would kill her with one palm first and then run away. Ding Nan had been with Zhou Qin for a long time, and she often fawned on the rich and powerful in the officialdom and business circles. She was very good at observing people's expressions. She glanced around and saw Zheng Yuan squinting at her, clenching and relaxing his fingers. His expression was really murderous. Ding Nan's heart trembled. She thought quickly and immediately made a decision. She quietly moved closer to Zheng Yuan and said in a low voice, "Master, you can use me as a hostage to threaten Li Yundong. He won't do anything to us." Zheng Yuan's heart skipped a beat and he asked in a low voice, "How do you know?" Ding Nan's heart was filled with mixed feelings, but she said calmly, "Because the owner of this body is his classmate." Hearing this, Zheng Yuan was overjoyed. He immediately grabbed Ding Nan's throat with his 5 fingers like hooks and shouted, "Li Yundong, don't push your luck. Be careful or I'll strangle your classmate." Li Yundong hadn't expected that Zheng Yuan would use Ding Nan to threaten him. He was shocked and angry. "Zheng Yuan, you won't even let go of your own disciple?" Zheng Yuan laughed and said, "I'd rather betray the world than let the world betray me." "Little girl, have you never been educated?" Li Yundong spat on the ground fiercely. "Bah, I think you've been educated for nothing." Ruan Hongling shouted angrily behind Zheng Yuan, "Li Yundong, why are you talking so much nonsense with this bastard? I don't believe he would dare kill his own disciple." However, Li Yundong saw that Zheng Yuan's eyes were full of murderous intent. His 5 fingers were like hooks, and as long as he exerted force, Ding Nan's throat would be broken. Especially just now, he had seen Zheng Yuan's sage-like and kind appearance, but in the blink of an eye, he had killed several people without batting an eyelid. Obviously, he was cruel and merciless. If he was forced into a corner, he would definitely kill Ding Nan and run away. Go to the internet. Li Yundong glared at Zheng Yuan hatefully, gritted his teeth, and said, "Well, Zheng Yuan, you win. But let me tell you, you can only use this move once. Next time, I will absolutely not be lenient." After that, he roared at Ding Nan, "Ding Nan, if you do too much evil, you will bring about your own destruction. Did you hear that? This time, I'll let him go for your sake. Next time I see you with him, I'll turn my back on you." Li Yundong's roar was really like thousands of bells ringing at the same time, making Ding Nan see stars in front of her eyes and the qi and blood in her chest churn. Zheng Yuan sneered, rolled up his sleeves, and quickly turned into a wisp of black smoke, flying into the air with Ding Nan. However, when he was halfway in the air, he was greedily attached to the body of the golden snake and refused to leave for a while. Zi Yuan shouted coldly, "Zheng Yuan, why are you still here? Do you want us to go back on our word?" Only then did Zheng Yuan's heart tremble. He let out a long roar of anger and unwillingness. Without looking at the body of the golden snake any longer, he fled into the distance. After he flew back to the cave residence on Mount Wuhua with Ding Nan, he turned from a wisp of black smoke into a human form. When the disciples in the cave saw him and Ding Nan returning, they all came forward with great joy and said, "Master, eldest Shiji, you're back." Zheng Yuan still had a kind smile on his face and nodded kindly to his disciple. But when he took Ding Nan into his inner mansion, his expression suddenly changed, and his innocent face became extremely ferocious. Zheng Yuan picked up a teapot beside him, smashed it on the ground, and shouted angrily, "How dare you? You killed my adopted son and stole my treasure. You've really gone too far." Ding Nan was startled. She rolled her eyes quickly, stepped forward with a smile, and gently stroked Zheng Yuan's back. She said softly, "Master, don't be angry. As the saying goes, it's never too late for a gentleman to take revenge. Moreover, when I succeed in my cultivation, won't I be able to help you take revenge?" Only then did Zheng Yuan's anger dissipate a lot. He turned his face, nodded to Ding Nan, and said approvingly, "Well done, you did a good job today. My painstaking efforts to cultivate you were not in vain." From now on, you can take all the elixirs I've collected. I will help you improve your cultivation as soon as possible. In the future, you will deal with Zi Yuan, who looks like an immortal on the outside but is like a prostitute on the inside. Humph, Li Yundong killed my adopted son, and today he stole my treasure. I must take revenge. When you succeed in your cultivation, I want to see if they dare to be so arrogant next time. Do they think there's no one in Mount Wuhua? After that, he suddenly thought of something. He took out a 3-inch-long golden hairpin from his sleeve and handed it to Ding Nan. He said with a smile, "This is the threaded hairpin of traversing soul that I snatched from the Fox Zen school. Take it and wear it with you every day to wear down its spiritual qi. When you succeed in your cultivation, you can refine it into your own powerful magical weapon." Li Yundong would never have thought that you would use the powerful magical weapon of the Fox Zen school to fight the Fox Zen school. Ha ha ha. His expression must have been wonderful at that time. Ding Nan took the threaded hairpin of traversing soul with a smile on her face. "Thank you, master." Zheng Yuan waved his hand. "As long as you work hard in your cultivation, I will give you whatever you want. I don't want to swallow this insult for even a day longer." As he said this, he chuckled and stroked Ding Nan's soft hair. "When you succeed in your cultivation, the two of us can revive the Yin-Yang sect of Mount Wuhua." Seeing his obscene smile, Ding Nan felt as if she had swallowed a fly. She endured the discomfort and smiled with Zheng Yuan, but when she turned around, the smile on her face disappeared in an instant, replaced by a cold expression. Ding Nan held the threaded hairpin of traversing soul tightly in her hand. She had seen with her own eyes how Yen Fong had used this magical item to destroy the arrogant Yi Yu. Ding Nan's heart skipped a beat. She wished she could immediately stab the threaded hairpin of traversing soul into the old lecher's throat. But she knew that it was not the right time. She gently stroked the body of the threaded hairpin of traversing soul with her fingers and thought to herself, "Li Yundong, sooner or later, I will make you look at me in the eye." After Zheng Yuan escaped with Ding Nan, Ruan Hongling shouted angrily, "You let that bastard escape just like that? Damn it, I'm so angry. Even if we call the police to arrest him, it would be better." Nonsense, of course, the affairs of cultivators should be settled in the cultivation world. Li Yunyang took a deep breath, suppressed his anger, and said, "Let's take the body of this golden snake back and bury it with the previous one." Ruan Hongling sneered and said, "The dead are lying on the ground and no one is collecting their bodies, but someone is eager to collect the body of this dead snake demon. What is this?" Li Yundong glared at her and said, "I think the worst one is a human being." Seeing that the two of them were bickering, Zi Yuan said in an attempt to smooth things over, "Stop arguing. The people here will naturally have familiar villagers come to collect the corpse later. If we intervene, we will definitely get ourselves into trouble. Hongling, use your brain more when you speak and do things. Don't just act on impulse." Ruan Hongling snorted and didn't say anything. Li Yundong and the others flew back to the top of the mountain with the golden snake. They put the two golden snakes together, and Su Chan suddenly said to Li Yundong, "How big are they? How can we bury them? How big a hole do we have to dig?" "Yundong, I think it's better to cremate them." Ruan Hongling laughed and said, "The skin of this golden snake is impervious to fire and water. How can you burn it?" Su Chan looked at the two golden snakes that had died together and felt sad. It was rare that she didn't bicker with Ruan Hongling. She said, "Shall we burn them with the Samadhi true fire?" Zi Yuan shook her head and said, "No, once the Samadhi true fire burns, this mountain will be finished. I think we'd better hurry up and dig a hole before anyone else notices." Li Yundong also agreed and said, "That's true. Are cultivators afraid of digging a few holes?" They rolled up their sleeves one after another and dug a big hole with magical items. They put the bodies of the two golden snakes in and covered them with soil. Li Yundong sighed and said with a sigh, I didn't expect to encounter such a thing this time. Let's go back. I hope we won't see such a thing again in the future. Zi Yuan stared at Li Yundong with bright eyes and asked, the whole body of this golden snake is a treasure. If you want to refine the Dun Jin Dan, you must have the Niden of the golden snake. The skin and scales of this golden snake can be used to make good magical items. Aren't you tempted at all? Li Yundong asked, what about you? Aren't you tempted? Zi Yuan said faintly, in this colorful world, the 3,000 living beings are just fleeting clouds to me. What's there to value and covet? Li Yundong smiled slightly and said, your realm is still higher than mine. I just feel that such a thing will burn my hand and make me feel uneasy. Cultivators pay the most attention to the state of mind. If I feel guilty, then my will not be firm, and my cultivation will regress. Therefore, although this golden snake is a treasure, compared with my cultivation, it is just a worldly possession. Zi Yuan couldn't help but nod and praise him. Not bad, you really have the style of a cultivator now. Li Yundong smiled and didn't say anything. He turned his head and waved at Su Chan, holding her little hand. Then, he said to Zi Yuan and Ruan Hongling, let's go back. Zi Yuan nodded and the group flew back to Mount Tianlong. It wasn't until noon that Li Yundong returned to the secret cave of the Fox Zen School. Zhou Qin, who had been waiting for him, immediately came up to him and asked, how was it? Li Yundong smiled at her and said, it's a long story. I'll tell you later. Let's go back to the Fox Zen School first. The group of people flew down from the cliff and landed in the Taoist temple. Chao Yi, who was cleaning up the debris in the former leader's room, heard the noise and came out to take a look. Her face was full of surprise and joy. She greeted them loudly and said, Leader, you're back. I found the property of our Fox Zen School, //7854627895541. Chapter 305. Go to watch net. Chao Yi's words made Li Yundong overjoyed, and his previous unhappiness faded a lot. He said with a smile, really? What property? Where is it? Take me to have a look. Only then did Chao Yi notice that there were other people around Li Yundong. She glanced around and saw that Zi Yuan and Ruan Hongling of the Jingyi school, who had participated in the siege of the Fox Zen School, were also there, as well as Su Chan and Li Yundong's eldest disciple, Zhou Qin. Go to watch net. 7 K.O.M. Chao Yi was shocked and thought to herself, Zhou Ping of the Jingyi school said that the leader colluded with Zi Yuan. At that time, when I saw the two of them fighting, I thought it was slander. Now it seems to be true. The sixth Shibua of the Fox Zen school bowed slightly to Zi Yuan and Ruan Hongling and said, Amateus, greetings, fellow Taoist of the Jingyi school and the Linggong sect. Although Ruan Hongling had always regarded herself as a member of a righteous sect and looked down on evil people like the Fox Zen school, at this time, she was in someone else's territory, so she couldn't be arrogant. She obediently followed Zi Yuan's example and bowed in return. After bowing, Zi Yuan said softly, I had no choice but to participate in the siege of the Fox Zen school last time. I hope you can forgive me. Chao Yi was a smart person. When she saw Li Yundong and Zi Yuan together, she immediately figured out why Zi Yuan had jumped out to deal with Li Yundong in name, but was secretly helping him. If Zi Yuan hadn't proposed to fight them one by one, no matter how powerful Li Yundong was, he wouldn't have been able to stop so many cultivators. Having figured this out, Chao Yi said respectfully from the bottom of her heart, Jinren Zi Yuan is broad-minded and doesn't attach as much importance to the rules of the sect as other cultivators do. On behalf of the entire Fox Zen school, I would like to express my gratitude to Jinren Zi Yuan for her help. Zi Yuan smiled slightly and didn't comment. Li Yundong had originally been very worried that the people of the Fox Zen school would have a conflict with Zi Yuan, so he hadn't informed Xiao Yi and the others immediately. But now it seemed that he had been too worried. He laughed and waved his hand. You two don't have to be so polite. Sherbwa Xiao Yi, take me to see the property of the Fox Zen school. I'm so poor now. In a few days, I'm afraid I'll have to beg in the streets of the Fox Zen school. His words made the others laugh. Xiao Yi nodded and said with a smile, then let's go now. Li Yundong smiled and pointed at Xiao Yi's Taoist robe. Do you want to go down the mountain like this? Aren't you afraid of being photographed? Zhou Qin was wearing a casual shirt and a pair of straight jeans, which outlined her figure in all the right places. Ruan Hongling was also dressed in a student's uniform, which made her look young and beautiful. She was the only one who was wearing a gray Taoist robe. She was not eye-catching at first, but when she stood with the others, she immediately became the most eye-catching one. Xiao Yi looked at herself and then at Li Yundong and the others. She was wearing casual clothes, and she looked young and beautiful. Only she was wearing a gray Taoist robe. She was not eye-catching at first, but when she stood with the others, she immediately became the most eye-catching one. Watch net. Xiao Yi smiled and said, Leader, to tell you the truth, except for last time, I've never gone down the mountain, and I don't have any other clothes to change into. Li Yundong smiled and said, although I'm a little poor, I can still afford a few sets of clothes. Let's go down the mountain and buy a set of clothes first. It's really inappropriate for you to go out like this. When Su Chan heard that they were going to buy clothes, her eyes lit up. She shouted excitedly, Are we going shopping? When Li Yundong heard this, he turned his head and pretended to be angry. He patted Su Chan on the forehead and said angrily, Little girl, don't make a fuss. Do you think I'm not bankrupt enough? If you piss me off, I'll pawn you there. When Su Chan heard this, she immediately leaned over with a look of horror on her face. She took Li Yundong's arm and said eagerly, Pawn me dead or alive. Li Yundong tried hard to hold back his laughter and deliberately scared the little girl. It depends on your performance. If you perform well, I'll pawn you alive. If you don't, you'll die. Su Chan pouted and looked resentful. After all this time, I still have to pawn you. Then I'll perform well. If you want to pawn me alive, you have to come and redeem me as soon as possible. Her words made Li Yundong burst out laughing. Zi Yuan, Zhou Qin, and the others couldn't help smiling. Li Yundong rubbed the little girl's cheek dotingly and waved his hand. Let's go down the mountain. The group of people filed out of the Taoist temple. Along the way, they met other disciples of the Fox Zen school. Li Yundong greeted them one by one and then went down the mountain. When they arrived at the foot of the mountain, Li Yundong and the others waited for a few taxis and then went straight to Dongwu City. After arriving in Dongwu City, Li Yundong first changed a set of clothes for Xiao Yi in a clothing store. Xiao Yi herself was a fox spirit, born to be a clothes rack. When she dressed up, the shop assistants and customers stared at her. Li Yundong and the others all applauded. Even Ruan Hongling couldn't help muttering sourly in her heart, a fox spirit is a fox spirit, born to seduce people. After changing Xiao Yi's clothes and buying a set of clothes for the other members of the Fox Zen school, they followed Xiao Yi straight to the legendary property of the Fox Zen school. Watch net. 7 KOM. Li Yundong asked along the way, where is this property of our Fox Zen school? Although Xiao Yi was a cultivator, she had followed the leader down the mountain and changed into a new outfit. She looked a little excited and said with a smile, I don't know the details, but I saw in the leader's notes that it was 328 Hong Kong Street, Mudu, Dongwu City. We'll find it ourselves later. Li Yundong nodded and secretly guessed what the property of the Fox Zen school was. Along the way, he and Su Chan made guesses. Su Chan sat in the back seat of the taxi and said with sparkling eyes, "If I had to guess, I guess the property of the Fox Zen School is either a clothing store or a cosmetics store. If not, it would be a snack bar." Li Yundong laughed and scolded, "You foodie, you only know how to eat. If I had to guess, I guess it's some kind of company." Su Chan said angrily, "Isn't it the same as not saying anything?" The two of them chatted and laughed, and the car had already entered Hong Kong Street, Muda District. At this time, it was already 5 o'clock in the evening. The sky had just turned dark, but the street had already been decorated with lanterns and colored banners. At first, they could see some promotional banners, but after Li Yundong got out of the car, he saw that the shampoo and foot washing rooms were lined up along the way, and all kinds of charming slogans were in sight. There was a lot of traffic on both sides of the road, and all of them were male office workers who had gotten off work and were going in and out of such entertainment places, laughing and debauching. Li Yundong was stunned and had a bad feeling in his heart. He asked a man who was in a hurry on the side of the road for the address of 328 Hong Kong Street. The man smiled ambiguously and said, "Oh. You'll see it if you walk 30 meters ahead." Li Yundong nodded and thanked him, then walked forward with Chao Yi, Su Chan, Zi Yuan, and the others, who were also stunned. After walking for more than 30 meters, Li Yundong found that in front of him was a luxuriously decorated entertainment city, with a few golden words written on it, "Crystal Love International Entertainment City." These words were surrounded by colorful lights that flickered incessantly, making it seem extravagant and ostentatious. The 2 rows of receptionists at the entrance had graceful figures. They wore sexy low-cut cheongsams with a V-neck. The cleavage almost reached the navel, and the slit of the skirt under the cheongsams almost reached the armpits. Li Yundong saw that most of the people going in and out of this shop were men. Every time a man entered, they would bend over, revealing their bodies, and call out sweetly, "Hello, boss. Hello, boss. Hello, boss." Li Yundong felt as if an atomic bomb had exploded in his mind, causing the sky to shake and the earth to darken. This. The expression on Li Yundong's face was very interesting. Isn't this the legendary red light district? What kind of F*King International Entertainment City is this? Come on, isn't this Miss City? Zhou Qin had long noticed that something was wrong, but she didn't say anything. She just pursed her lips and snickered, as if she was ready to watch the fun. Su Chan was naive and didn't notice anything. She curiously pointed to the 2 waitresses at the door and asked, "Aren't they afraid of the cold?" Although Chao Yi had not seen much of the world, she was an old fox after all. She quickly noticed that something was wrong and said, "Maybe we're in the wrong place." Li Yundong forced a smile and said, "Maybe." As he said this, he stopped a middle-aged man who was about to walk into the Crystal Love International Entertainment City and asked, "Hello, is 328 Hong Kong Street here?" Although he asked, he was praying repeatedly in his heart, "This is not the property of the Fox Zen School, this is not the property of the Fox Zen School." The man looked Li Yundong up and down, then glanced greedily at Su Chan and the others behind Li Yundong. He said with jealousy and envy, "Nonsense, of course it is. Brother, why do you still come out to play when you have so many excellent people around you? Aren't you afraid of being struck by lightning?" After that, he flicked his sleeves and left. When he entered the door, the waitress bent down again, revealing a large area of snow-white skin. She shouted sweetly, "Hello, boss." Li Yundong was dumbfounded. He thought to himself, "Damn, this is really the property of the Fox Zen School. What kind of place is this Fox Zen School? No wonder people call it a devil. Its only property is actually a damn service industry." Su Chan, who hadn't reacted yet, excitedly said, "Come out to play. Is it fun here? I want to go play too." Li Yundong slapped Su Chan on the forehead and glared at her. What nonsense are you talking about? Su Chan was startled. She put her hands on her forehead and blinked at Li Yundong. She felt wronged and confused, not knowing what she had said wrong. At this time, both Zi Yuan and Ruan Hongling saw the clues. Zi Yuan frowned slightly, while Ruan Hongling blushed slightly. She spat and said, "Bah, what kind of place is this?" Su Chan was not stupid. She rolled her eyes and looked at everyone's reaction. Then, she looked at the beautiful waitress at the door, who was not like an ordinary woman. She suddenly realized something and her face turned red. She took Li Yundong's hand and whispered, "Yundong, are we in the wrong place?" Li Yundong had never expected that the Fox Zen school he had taken over would not only be a rotten mess, but also that the only industry with a source of income was actually a place that engaged in prostitution. He sucked in a breath of cold air, his heart filled with anger. He ignored Su Chan and walked in by himself. The waitresses at the door had been paying attention to Li Yundong for a long time. They even wondered if Li Yundong would come in. One of them guessed, "Of course not." Look at the beautiful women around him, each more beautiful than the other. Why would he come in to have sex? Others retorted disdainfully, "Who said that? House flowers are not as fragrant as wild flowers. Men are all cheap." While they were muttering, they saw Li Yundong rushing inside aggressively. They immediately stood up and prepared to bow, but they saw the anger hidden between Li Yundong's brows and the boldness that ordinary people did not have. In the blink of an eye, he rushed in, followed by 5 or 6 beautiful women, each with a different look in their eyes. The girls who were begging outside had sharp eyes. They immediately felt their hearts beat like drums and thought that something was wrong. One of them immediately waved to the girl not far away and whispered, "Call Main Yang. I'm afraid she's here to cause trouble." Sure enough, Li Yundong came to the lobby, looked around, and said in a deep voice, "Who is in charge here?" Main Yang rushed over immediately. This woman was about 30 years old and was wearing a seductive and sexy long dress. She was quite beautiful, but there was a lot of dust between her eyebrows. She walked over with a charming smile, looked at Li Yundong, and then glanced at Su Chan and the others behind him. She covered her mouth and exclaimed, "Main Yang, I started my career at the age of 16. I've been doing business for so many years, but this is the first time I've seen a guest come to play and bring his own goods. Amazing, amazing, I admire you. Boss, are you here to play or to make trouble, //7854627895541. Chapter 306. Go to watch net. Li Yundong looked Main Yang up and down and saw that this woman was very much like a chicken head. He frowned and asked in a deep voice, "Are you in charge here?" As the saying goes, women are the best business cards for men. Main Yang, who had been in the circle of fame and fortune all year round, naturally knew this very well. She saw that Li Yundong had an extraordinary bearing and was accompanied by so many beautiful women. Obviously, he was not an ordinary person. She didn't dare to neglect him and said with an apologetic smile, "Thank you for your care. I'm the mother here. May I know your name?" Li Yundong wanted to ask Main Yang if this was the property of the Fox Zen school, but he looked around and saw that everyone in the hall was looking at them. Li Yundong said, "Let's find a place to sit down and talk." "How about that?" Lady May rolled her eyes and pointed in a direction. "Then let's go into the private room and talk. Watch net. Updated at a very fast speed." Main Yang snapped her fingers and called over a supervisor with heavy makeup. She said, "Go to the second floor and open a large VIP's room." The foreman nodded and gave some instructions through the walkie-talkie. Main Yang turned around and smiled at Li Yundong, then led the way. Ruan Hongling saw that this woman was covered in dust and her slender waist swayed 3 times as she walked. She scolded in a low voice, shameless. Mei Nyang heard this clearly, but she had heard this kind of thing many times, so she did not take it to heart. She just smiled slightly. Li Yundong followed her all the way and only felt that the decoration of this entertainment city was quite luxurious. The whole building was Western style, and it was surrounded by gold and jade. Occasionally, there were hot women in revealing clothes passing by, and Li Yundong could smell a pungent perfume. When they reached the second floor, Li Yundong followed Mei Nyang into an extremely spacious VIP room. This private room was like a presidential suite. The living room was covered with a sand carpet, and there was a huge plasma TV. There was a huge bed inside, and there was a bathroom next to the bedroom. It could be said that everything was available. After entering the room, Mei Nyang politely invited Li Yundong and the others to the sofa. She smiled and asked, "This boss is so young. I've been in this business for so long, but I've never seen such a handsome guy like you." Although her words were a compliment, the flattery and innate charm in her tone were obvious. Zhou Qin and Zi Yuan, who were next to her, frowned. Li Jiandong didn't beat around the bush. He went straight to the point and said, "Hello, my surname is Li. Do you know Lu Yi?" When Mei Nyang heard this, her whole body shook, and her smile stiffened. Lu Yi? Who was he? I've never heard of it. Li Yundong quickly caught Mei Nyang's expression and said, "Don't lie in front of a real person. Do you know him or not? I can tell you that we can say that we are Lu Ye's friends, and we are looking for you for some information. Watch net. 7 KOM. Mei Nyang's eyes scanned Li Yundong and the others warily. Seeing that Li Yundong's expression didn't seem to be fake, she said, "Yes, I know Lu Yi." "What's the matter?" Li Yundong asked, "What's your relationship with Lu Yi?" Mei Nyang became more vigilant. "Why are you asking this?" At this time, Zi Yuan sent a voice transmission to Li Yundong, "She's a human, not a fox spirit. She might be an outer disciple." Li Yundong understood and asked, "Are you his master and disciple?" Unexpectedly, Mei Nyang was stunned and suddenly burst into laughter. Tears flowed out of her eyes. She wiped away her tears and said with a smile, "I'm his master and disciple? Who did you hear that from? Did he tell you?" "Huh, I'm dying of laughter." Li Yundong said in a deep voice, "Then what's your relationship with him? Could it be?" Mei Nyang's eyes widened. "Could it be what? Mistress?" "Hey, that's right, this dead man is my mistress." After she explained the relationship, she simply sat on the sofa and crossed her legs. She took out a lady's cigarette and lit it skillfully. She took a puff and exhaled a rising smoke ring. She said, "You don't look like bad people. Tell me, what are you doing here? Don't tell me that you are the illegitimate children of Lu Yi. You came to ask me for alimony. I don't have that kind of money." Li Yundong originally thought that this woman was Lu Ye's outer disciple, but he hadn't expected that she was his mistress. He was sweating in his heart and thought to himself, Lu Yi is really a treasured knife that doesn't grow old. As the leader of the sect, he actually has a mistress outside. There's no reliable person in the Fox Zen school. What the hell is going on? Since they were lovers, Li Yundong couldn't put on the airs of the leader of the sect. He secretly wiped his sweat and said, "That's not the case. I'm just here to tell you something and ask you something." Mei Nyang smoked casually and squinted at him. "What is it? Tell me, why didn't this dead man come to see me himself?" Li Yundong thought for a moment and said carefully, "Lu Yi is dead." Mei Nyang smoking suddenly froze. Her face was wooden and she couldn't speak for a long time. After a while, 2 drops of tears fell from her face. She murmured, "You dead man, you didn't come to see me for a long time. I thought you were dead somewhere. It turns out that you're really dead." She murmured to herself for a while, then wiped away the tears and sadness on her face, as if nothing had happened just now. She asked, "Is that why you came to see me?" Li Yundong was speechless when he saw that she had gotten rid of her sadness so quickly. He thought for a moment, then simply stood up and said, "Well, we came to tell you about this. Go to the internet." Mainyang muttered, "Is there a need to mobilize so many people? He even brought so many beautiful women with him, which will make the ladies here feel so inferior that they won't dare to receive guests later." Li Yundong didn't know whether to laugh or cry when he heard this. He took the lead and walked out. Chao Yi suddenly asked, "Zhang. Li Yundong, are you leaving just like that?" Li Yundong glanced at her and said meaningfully, "Is there anything else you want to do?" Chao Yi didn't dare to have any other opinions. She smiled dryly and didn't say anything. When Li Yundong walked to the door, he suddenly stopped, turned around, and asked, "By the way, do you know Lu Ye's real identity?" Mainyang was still leaning lazily on the sofa with her legs crossed. She blew out a smoke ring and said leisurely, "In our line of work, we only care about the money in the customers' wallets. Why should we care about what they do?" Li Yundong frowned. "Aren't you and him?" Mainyang didn't wait for him to finish and interrupted him with a sneer, "So what? In the end, wasn't he just going to wash his hands of her? All I know is that he comes and goes like a ghost all day long. When he misses me, he comes to me. When he doesn't miss me, he throws me aside. I'm worse than an inflatable doll." Hearing this, Li Yundong broke out in a cold sweat. He didn't say anything more, turned around, and left. After he took Su Chan and the others out of the entertainment city, Su Chan asked in confusion, "Yundong, why didn't you ask her about the property of our Fox Zen school?" Chao Yi also took the opportunity to agree. "Yes, yes." Li Yundong said with a sullen face, "Let alone whether this is the property of the Fox Zen school or not, even if it is, I won't take it. Can this kind of money be used? As a cultivator, don't you think it's hot to use it? Moreover, didn't you hear what Mainyang said? She is neither a disciple of the Fox Zen school nor Lu Yi. This is not under the control of our Fox Zen school. No matter how much power I have, I can't make her do anything. Moreover, she is a lover of the former leader. Didn't you hear what she said just now? There is a hidden meaning in her words. She is on guard against us. Unless we have evidence in our hands to prove that this is the property of the Fox Zen school, how can we ask for it?" Li Yundong paused for a moment and said, "Even if there is evidence, I don't want it. I didn't care about it before, but since I've taken over the Fox Zen school, I can't get involved in this kind of thing in the future. Won't it be shameful if it gets out? What will other cultivation sects think of our Fox Zen school?" Li Yundong's words made Chao Yi feel embarrassed. The little girl beside her muttered, "The last time I went back to the Fox Zen school with my master, I saw that the outer disciples were all wearing heavy makeup." The expression on Zi Yuan's face was strange, but she still asked with concern, "Li Yundong, do you have any other plans without this source of income?" Li Yundong sighed and was about to speak when he suddenly saw Mainyang chasing after him from the entertainment city. She shouted, "Hey, handsome guy, wait!" Chao Yi and Su Chan's hearts skipped a beat. Could it be that this woman has a conscience and wants to give this property to us? However, they saw the woman run up to Li Yundong with a charming smile and hand over a business card. She winked at Li Yundong and said in a coquettish voice, "Handsome guy, since we met today, it's fate. Here, this is my business card. When you want to come out to play, call me." He, although the quality of the ladies here is not as good as the ones around you, as the saying goes, home flowers are not as fragrant as wild flowers. You know what I mean. After that, she giggled and blew Li Yundong a kiss, then turned around and swayed back. Li Yundong stared blankly at the business card in his hand. Damn, do I look like a whorehouse? Su Chan saw that this woman had actually seduced Li Yundong in front of her and even said that this guy was not as fragrant as wild flowers. No matter how scheming she was, she couldn't help but get angry. She jumped up, rushed to Li Yundong's side, and patted his clothes hard with her hands, as if she wanted to help him sweep away the smell of cosmetics. You've gone too far. Su Chan said angrily. How could you say such a thing? You're so shameless. Li Yundong threw away the business card in his hand, clapped his hands, and coughed dryly. Okay, let's leave quickly. Don't you look bad standing here? The women glared at the entertainment city and left with a belly full of resentment. Along the way, Ruan Hongling and Su Chan were surprisingly the same, swearing at Mei Nyang. After listening for a while, Li Yundong couldn't help but feel a headache coming on. He said, Okay, you two, calm down. The most important thing now is to quickly think of a way to open up a source of income. As soon as he said this, the others all looked worried. Even Zi Yuan frowned. Zhou Qin, who was beside her, said softly, Why don't we buy the shop I mentioned first? Li Yundong smiled bitterly and said, You're right, but distant water can't quench present thirst. Just when several famous figures in the cultivation world were at their wits' end because of Brother Kong Fong, a young woman suddenly ran over from the side with a stack of leaflets in her hand. She said enthusiastically, Hello. Then, she handed over a leaflet. Li Yundong took it but didn't look at it. Su Chan, Ruan Hongling, and Chao Yi all took one. Only Zi Yuan and Zhou Qin's temperament was so cold that the young woman didn't dare to offend them, so she didn't hand over the leaflet. Li Yundong glanced at it and saw that it was an advertisement for Tai Guanyin. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Damn, isn't the Tai Guanyin party too powerful? Advertisements are everywhere. As soon as he finished speaking, the others immediately looked at the leaflet. Ruan Hongling was overjoyed and said loudly, I have an idea. Everyone looked at her. Ruan Hongling pointed to the leaflet with a flushed face and said, Look. Li Yundong took a look and saw that in the middle of the leaflet, it said, The first China Tea Culture and Art Challenge tournament will be held in Dongwu City in 5 days. Li Yundong glanced at it briefly. It was about welcoming all tea guests, tea friends, and tea merchants to the art festival. Tai Guanyin's party would set up an arena in Dongwu City. At that time, celebrities from all over would be invited to taste the tea and choose the best tea beauty in China. Li Yundong laughed and said, Even tea merchants have started to make an eye-catching economy? But what does this have to do with us? Ruan Hongling pointed to the words below and said excitedly, Look at the bonus, look at the bonus. Li Yundong glanced at it again. Oh my God, the bonus is 2 million. But he still smiled and said, This 2 million is not ours. The bonus for the F1 formula is even higher. Can we get it? Ruan Hongling rolled her eyes at Li Yundong and said, Of course you can't get it, but my sister Zi Yuan is different. Zi Yuan said angrily, Hongling. However, Ruan Hongling didn't buy it. She took Zi Yuan's hand and said, Sister Zi Yuan, we are so poor that we can't even afford the rent. Are you still keeping it to yourself? Li Yundong looked at Zi Yuan curiously and asked, Zi Yuan, do you know how to make tea? Ruan Hongling snorted and said, Of course, if my sister Zi Yuan thinks that her tea skills are second, no one in the world would dare to think that they are first. If she signs up for the competition, the money will be in her pocket. Li Yundong gave Zi Yuan a thumbs up and praised her, Fairy sister is really fairy sister. You are amazing. I admire you. Su Chan, who was standing to one side, suddenly pulled Li Yundong's arm and raised the flyer. She pointed to a person printed in the lower right corner and said, Yundong, why do I feel that this person looks familiar? Li Yundong took a closer look and saw that this person was the organizer of this event. He had a pure and excellent temperament. If it wasn't Zheng Yuming, who had once been destroyed by him, then who else could it be? Li Yundong was delighted and laughed out loud. Hey, an old acquaintance. If I don't earn his money, I will be struck by lightning, comma, / 785462789541. 7 KOM. If it were me, I would spend money to bribe all these people, and then secretly manipulate the competition to let my people get first place. In the end, the 2 million would still fall into my pocket. I would also use social resources and eye-catching effects to advertise myself for free. This analysis made Li Yundong and the others gasp. Li Yundong said, "Damn it, this move is too shameless." But Zhou Qin, what you said is very possible. Ruan Hongling was so angry that she shouted, "Shameless. Shameless beyond belief. This is a blatant unspoken rule." Su Chan said with a face full of doubt, "Then what should we do? How much is the bonus for the second place? Shall we get second place?" Li Yundong laughed and pinched the little girl's pink cheek. "You fool, the second place is only worth nearly 300,000 yuan. The gap between the first and second places is so big. It would have been fine if Zhou Qin hadn't said it just now, but now that she has said it and looked at the gap between the bonuses, I can feel that there is something fishy about it. However, I think we can still try to fight for it. Maybe the judge's eyes are sharp. Besides, even if we don't get first place, it's not bad to get second place. 300,000 yuan is also good." Zi Yuan pondered for a while and said, "That's right. Everything is planned by man and accomplished by God. If we don't do anything, we will definitely achieve nothing. However, since we are going to participate in the tea art competition, do you have a look at what is needed?" Li Yundong thought for a moment and suddenly smiled bitterly. "Anyway, the best tea leaves and a good tea set are still needed, right? I'm afraid we will have to spend money to buy these things. Sai, as the saying goes, if you want to make money, you must first have money." This is really a wise saying. Su Chan also sighed. "Yeah, where are we going to get money now? These top-grade tea leaves and tea sets are very, very expensive." Li Yundong looked at Su Chan in surprise. "Oh? You know about this?" The little girl was unhappy. She stomped her feet and said angrily, "Don't look down on me. I was the one who taught you how to cultivate." Li Yundong laughed, rubbed the girl's hair, and said dotingly, Okay, my girl is the best. Watch net." Only then did the little girl's anger turn into joy, and she beamed with joy. Zi Yuan looked at the two of them laughing and smiled slightly. It was as if she was in this pure and warm atmosphere of love. She also felt very quiet and peaceful. After a while, she said, "In fact, you don't have to worry about top-grade tea leaves and top-grade tea sets. There is a set of top-grade tea sets and some top-grade Huangshan Maofeng tea in the cave residence of the Linggong sect." Li Yundong asked curiously, "Huangshan Maofeng? What kind of tea is this? I've never heard of it. I've only heard of Tiguanyin, Biluakan, and so on." Ruan Hongling laughed and said, "You have no experience. Tiguanyin and Biluakan are like BMW and Volkswagen in cars. There are ordinary grades and top-grade grades. Because there are more ordinary grades, the production is also more, so everyone is familiar with them. However, in the heyday of Huangshan Maofeng in history, only a few hundred loads were produced a year. Although this tea is not famous, in fact, it is the Rolls-Royce of tea leaves. At an auction not long ago, 50 grams of Huangshan Maofeng were sold for a sky-high price of 85,000 yuan. Li Yundong sucked in a breath of cold air. 85,000 yuan for 50 grams? This price can be compared with gold. Wan Hongling snorted. Of course. Why else would Huangshan Maofeng be said to be the best of the best? I begged Sister Zi Yuan to make this tea for me last time, but she was unwilling to give it to me. You are really lucky. Li Yundong smiled and said, I'm not a judge who drinks tea. Seeing that Wan Hongling was about to speak, Zi Yuan quickly glared at her and said, You only know how to show off here. Why don't you hurry back to the sect to get it? We'll go back to Tiannan City and wait for your news. Wan Hongling's face fell and she muttered, I'm the one running errands again. My legs are so thin. There's no benefit for me. I've learned all your lessons. Zi Yuan pretended to be angry and said, You're still talking. Wan Hongling quickly said, Okay, I know I was wrong. I know I was wrong, okay? Before she left, she made a face at Li Yundong and then looked around. Seeing that no one was paying attention, she turned into a blue light and flew up. She flew back to Mount Longhu at an extremely fast speed and returned to the cave residence. She searched around in the stone cave where Zi Yuan had secluded herself and found a sealed porcelain pot and a tea set. Wan Hongling chuckled and took out a small treasure pouch from her arms. She pinched the mouth of the pouch and it opened by itself. The mouth of the pouch emitted a colorful brilliance. Wan Hongling carefully put the teapot and the tea set in it, then closed the mouth of the pouch and hid the treasure pouch on her body. She stood up and walked out of the stone room. After she walked out of the stone room, she passed by the pond full of lotus flowers. She turned her head to take a look and saw that the two budding lotus flowers were already showing signs of blooming. The flowers were glowing, and she could vaguely see the figures of two little people curled up inside. Wan Hongling said to herself with a smile, Good boy, I haven't seen you for a few days, but you've grown quite fast. She was about to turn around and leave when she suddenly heard footsteps coming from outside, followed by a woman shouting, Seal this place. Wan Hongling was shocked and went out to take a look. She saw Zhou Ping and the Lady of the Earthly Fire, Zhang Ling, standing in front of the cave residence and loudly ordering the disciples of the Zhengyi school around. Wan Hongling saw that the disciples of the Zhengyi school were holding all kinds of seals and wooden boards in their hands. In the blink of an eye, the Taoist temple was covered with seals and even the door was nailed shut. She was shocked and angry. What are you doing? Zhou Ping snorted coldly and glanced at her, her eyes full of disdain. What are you doing? Are you blind? Wan Hongling was so angry that her whole body was trembling. This is the place of our Linggong sect. How can you be so presumptuous? Zhou Ping laughed loudly and said, This is the place of our Zhengyi school. Why can't we be so presumptuous? Wan Hongling was extremely angry and shouted, It's fine if you freeze our accounts, but why do you have to seal our Taoist temple? Why are you doing this? Zhou Ping laughed, took out a stack of photos from her sleeve, and threw them in front of Wan Hongling. Wan Hongling blocked it with her hand, and with a bang, the photos flew everywhere. Wan Hongling saw that these photos were all of Li Jiandong and Zi Yuan together. Wan Hongling suddenly became furious. How dare you follow us? Zhou Ping sneered and said, If you don't want people to know, don't do it. The future leader of your Linggong sect doesn't know how to cherish herself and hang out with the leader of the Fox Zen school. Don't you know what shame is? After that, she waved her arm and said, Seal them all. Seal this filthy sect for me. Wan Hongling was so angry that she was about to move her hand. Just as she was about to take out her magical item, the Lady of the Earthly Fire pointed at her and shouted, Tut! Wan Hongling's body suddenly stiffened and she couldn't move for an instant. Zhou Ping waved her hand and said, Seal the cave abode inside as well. At her order, the other disciples of the Zhengyi school rushed in one after another. The Lady of the Earthly Fire also walked in. At first glance, she saw the 2 budding lotus flowers in the lotus pond and immediately exclaimed in surprise, "These Bingdi flowers look exactly the same, and the 3 souls and 7 spirits of people in them are also exactly the same? This is really rare." Zhou Ping, who was standing to one side, had a fawning smile on her face. "Master, if you like them, just take them away. Anyway, wouldn't it be a waste to leave such good things in the Linggong sect?" The Lady of the Earthly Fire chuckled. She was a little hesitant because she was worried about her pride. However, Zhou Ping simply waved her hand and lifted the 2 Bingdi lotuses up along with the soil. She held them in the air with Zhenqi and said with a smile, "Master, wouldn't it be better if we took them back to the Zhengyi school to recuperate?" The Lady of the Earthly Fire chuckled and looked at the 2 Bingdi lotuses with joy. She nodded and praised, "Good, good. Your Sherbua's Sanju formation just happens to lack 2 sword spirits with great spiritual qi." The inner alchemy sect and the external alchemy sect are constantly fighting. On the surface, the 6 sects and the Zhengyi school are cooperating, but in fact, they are secretly fighting for the leadership of the cultivation world. Watch net. 7 KOM. At present, the 6 sects have united, and their power is comparable to that of the Zhengyi school, so they want to annex our Linggong sect to strengthen the Zhengyi school. Zi Yuan sneered. If they can seal the Linggong sect, how can they seal the mouths of the cultivators in the world? Hongling, it's right that you didn't go to them directly. Otherwise, you would have fallen into their trap. In our current situation, if we go to the Zhengyi school, it will be like hitting a stone with an egg. At the moment, we can only swallow our anger and endure humiliation. In half a year, our Linggong sect will hold a succession ceremony for the leader. This ceremony will be held by the Zhengyi school. At that time, in order to legitimately annex us, the Zhengyi school will definitely send out golden invitations and invite the leaders of the cultivation sects in the world to attend. At that time, we can ask the leaders of the world to uphold justice for us. After hearing this, Li Yundong immediately said, "I don't dare to say anything else, but I, Li Yundong, will be the first to support you. Our Fox Zen school will also fully support you." Su Chan had always been very grateful to Zi Yuan for her help to Li Yundong. She had guided Li Yundong on the path of cultivation, but Zi Yuan was the one who had helped him achieve success. Without Zi Yuan, Li Yundong would not have such great shentong. She also nodded vigorously and said, "Sister Zi Yuan, I also support you." Zhou Qin opened her mouth and wanted to say something, but she felt that she was too weak to do so. She didn't know how to cultivate or how to use shentong, so she swallowed her words, but there was a resolute look in her eyes. Zi Yuan smiled slightly and said, "I appreciate your kindness, but if you support our Linggong sect so blatantly, it will be the right time to confirm their crimes." Ruan Hongling jumped up and said angrily, "Let's do it." "They can do it, but we can't." Li Yundong also said unhappily, "It's precisely because the world says that the Fox Zen school is a place that hides evil, that I have to make great efforts to rectify the Fox Zen school and turn it into a famous righteous sect. People are not born bad people. Even if they are bad people, can't they be good people in the future?" Seeing that Li Yundong was angry, Zi Yuan smiled apologetically at him and said, "You're right. I was being paranoid." Only then did Li Yundong's anger turn into joy. "That's right. Don't worry. I will definitely stand up for you at the inauguration ceremony of the leader in half a year." Zi Yuan smiled slightly and thought to herself, Li Yundong has only been cultivating for half a year. Although he is already a first-class master of the younger generation, there is still a big gap between him and the cultivators of the older generation. At that time, I have to find a way to persuade him not to stand up. Otherwise, he will be besieged by the leaders of the various sections. That will be unimaginable. Kai 98 when 1 Shui 0 net 6 Z Yuan had made up her mind and stopped mentioning this matter. She turned to Ruan Hongling and said, let's put this matter aside for the time being. Right now, solving the problem of food, clothing, housing, and transportation is the biggest problem. Let's go to the net. Have you brought the tea and tea set? Ruan Hongling wiped her tears, took out a small treasure pouch, and tore it gently. Li Yundong and the others saw a mass of colorful light emerge. Ruan Hongling reached out to explore the light, and then took out a teapot and a tea set. Li Yundong saw that the tea set was made of purple sand, which looked very imposing. The teapot looked ordinary. He asked, how long have the tea leaves been in it? Are they unlucky? Ruan Hongling was so angry that she rolled her eyes at Li Yundong. Don't talk nonsense if you don't understand. This is a porcelain pot sealed by Sister Zi Yuan with her spiritual power. The top-grade Huangshan Maofeng inside will still be fine even if it has been kept for 2 years. Li Yundong didn't take her words seriously. He laughed and said, then let's discuss it now. When the time comes, we need to have a rule. As he said this, he turned to look at Zi Yuan and asked, do you need anyone to help you with the tea art competition? Zi Yuan thought for a moment and said, I don't need anyone's help. I alone am enough. Li Yundong smiled and said, well, we'll cheer for you from below the stage. Ruan Hongling couldn't help but ridicule him again. Idiot, do you think you're watching a sports competition? How dare you cheer for me? The tea art performance is an art that combines movement and stillness. It pays attention to watching and tasting. Li Yundong knew that her sect had encountered misfortune, so he didn't argue with her. He cupped his hands and said with a smile, Zhenren Ruan is very knowledgeable. I admire you. Ruan Hongling raised her head and said, of course. Li Yundong said to Su Chan and Zhou Qin, hurry up and take a rest. We'll go to Dongwu City before dawn tomorrow morning. After Li Yundong finished speaking, Su Chan and Zhou Qin returned to their respective rooms. Fortunately, Li Yundong's room was quite large, with 3 bedrooms and 2 living rooms. Su Chan slept in one room, and Zhou Qin slept in another. Ruan Hongling and Zi Yuan went back to their own rooms, while Li Yundong was still meditating and practicing qi in the living room. It was not until 4 o'clock in the morning that Li Yundong woke up from his meditation. He exhaled a long breath and let out a soft groan. Chapter 309. Go to Watch Network. Zheng Yoming's heart trembled when he saw Li Yundong, especially when he saw Zi Yuan, who was participating in the competition. He was even more shocked and couldn't help but compare her with the beauty in his arms. Go to see. The beauty in his arms was also a rare beauty. She was like a prostitute in bed and a lady out of bed. What was even more commendable was that her tea skills were extremely exquisite. She could be said to be excellent in both beauty and skill. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been willing to spend so much money to organize such an event. On the one hand, it was to advertise his tea, and on the other hand, it was to promote the beauty in his arms. But now, it seemed that compared with the beauty in front of him, Zheng Yuming suddenly felt that he was not hugging a phoenix, but a chicken. It was true that comparisons were odious, and goods had to be thrown away. Zheng Yuming suddenly felt very upset. He whispered a few words to a staff member next to him. The staff member nodded, then walked to the lady at the registration desk and fetched the information of Li Yundong and the others. When Zheng Yuming saw it, he was shocked again. The best Huangshan Maofeng? The beautiful woman next to him craned her head to take a look and was also shocked. This is good tea. I'm afraid that your Tai Guanyin can't suppress it. Zheng Yuming squinted at her and said, if my tea can't suppress it, can you, the tea lady, suppress it? As he said this, he signaled Zi Yuan with his eyes. The beautiful woman glanced at Zi Yuan and snorted sourly. You like it? Then go to her. Why are you looking for me? As she said this, she was about to break free from his arms and leave. Zheng Yuming quickly smiled and said, oh, don't be angry. You know that I only have you in my heart. Only then did the tea lady's anger turn into joy. She said angrily, you men are all greedy. Humph, I know it best. I don't care. You have to guarantee that I will get first place, or I won't let you off. Zheng Yuming smiled bitterly to himself. Oh my God, don't you see that she is determined to win? Even the top-grade yellow mountain Maofeng was brought out. If the difference in strength between the two sides was too great, and the people weren't blind, wouldn't the audience scold me to death if I blatantly manipulated the match? Do you think you're living a good life because of me? In the end, aren't we just going to suffer together? The tea lady looked at Zi Yuan. Although she didn't know how good Zi Yuan's tea skills were, just looking at her otherworldly temperament, her heart was beating like a drum. This temperament can't be faked. How could she dare to go to Liangshan without some ability? I'm afraid she has some talent. The tea lady looked worried. What should we do? Could it be that you want to benefit others? Zheng Yuming snorted. How can I let the fertile water flow to an outsider's field? Of course I have the final say in my territory. This bastard always spoils my plans. How can I let him have his way this time? He beckoned to a staff member next to him and whispered something in his ear. The staff member nodded and walked into the hall. After a while, a man and a woman came out of the hall. Watch net. 7 KOM. The man was about 40 or 50 years old, dressed in a suit and leather shoes. He appeared to be in high spirits and had an extraordinary bearing. The woman looked to be in her 20s. Although her appearance was ordinary, her eyes were sharp and her eyebrows were filled with arrogance. When Zheng Yuming saw the two of them, he immediately smiled. He shook hands with the middle-aged man and said, Manager Zhong, I need your help this time. Manager Zhong smiled slightly. Don't mention it. We will often cooperate together in the future. If you need anything, just let me know. Zheng Yuming said with a smile, just now, a contestant was extraordinary and chose the top-grade yellow mountain Maofeng tea. Before he could finish his words, Manager Zhong laughed and said, the top-grade yellow mountain Maofeng tea? Manager Zheng, congratulations. Your advertisement is very good. It seems that even real tea merchants have been attracted. Is that why you are worried? But I remember that you have a lot of Taiping monkey kuei in your collection. This is the king of tea. You don't need my help. Zheng Yuming smiled bitterly and waved his hand. No matter how good the tea is, it needs an expert to brew it. Manager Zhong, don't make fun of me. Take a look for yourself. As he spoke, he pointed to Zi Yuan, who was not far away. When Manager Zhong looked over, his expression suddenly changed. He quickly exchanged glances with the female companion next to him. The female companion also looked at him in surprise, as if she couldn't believe her eyes. Seeing their strange expressions, Zheng Yuming quickly asked, what's wrong? Do you know her? Manager Zhong chuckled and said, we do have some friendship. What do you mean, Manager Zheng? Zheng Yuming asked tentatively, since you and she are old acquaintances, why don't you persuade her to withdraw from this competition? Well. Manager Zhong thought for a moment. After a while, he said, well, I'll give it a try. But this woman has a powerful background. I'm not sure if I can win. Zheng Yuming smiled and said, there's a way. Since we are friends, don't hurt our friendship. Manager Zhong smiled and walked over to Zi Yuan and the others. When he got close, he greeted them and said, "It's really rare for Zhenren Zi Yuan of the Linggong sect of the Zhengyi school to come to this small tea art competition." Zi Yuan turned around and looked over. She was immediately moved and said, "Zhong Qingsong, the abbess of the Pine Valley Nunnery in Mount Huangshan? Why are you here too?" Her eyes subconsciously fell on the woman next to Zhong Qingsong. "Are you also here to participate in the competition?" Zhong Qingsong chuckled and said, "I'm just a partner of the organizer. Why does Zhenren Zi Yuan have the leisure to participate in such a small competition?" As he said this, he looked at Li Yundong and asked, "This is?" Zi Yuan smiled and said, "This is Li Yundong, the current leader of the Fox Zen school. This is my shimmy, Ruan Hongling. This is Su Chan of the Fox Zen school, and this is Li Yundong's eldest disciple, Zhou Qin." Zhong Qingsong listened to her calmly introduce Li Yundong. He couldn't help but be shocked. He was shocked that the cultivation world had been talking about a young man who had forced the 6 great sects to return without success in Mount Tianlong these days. He hadn't expected that this person would appear in front of him. He was shocked that Zi Yuan, who had always been proud and aloof, was actually in cahoots with the leader of the Fox Zen school. Zhong Qingsong subconsciously looked at Li Yundong. He saw that the boy in front of him had a peaceful face, the corners of his mouth were slightly raised, and there was a hidden smile on his face. He had an extraordinary bearing between his eyebrows, and his eyes were bright and deep. Go to the internet. 7.com/om/ His heart trembled and he thought to himself, he looks like a capable person, but it's a pity that he didn't take the right path. While Zhong Qingsong was looking at Li Yundong, the young woman next to him was also looking at Li Yundong. Seeing that there were no ordinary people around, she asked bluntly, "Are you Li Yundong?" Li Yundong was neither humble nor arrogant. He nodded and said, "Yes." The young woman looked at Su Chan next to him and then at Zhou Qin. In her heart, she classified him as a lecher. She curled her lips and said, "It said that your shentong is amazing and you are good at fighting. You forced back the siege of the 6 great sects by yourself." Li Yundong smiled slightly and said, "I was just lucky." The young woman snorted and said, "I think you were lucky. That's because I didn't go. Otherwise, how could you have stood up for me?" After she finished speaking, Su Chan immediately retorted, "Yes, you must have known about the limelight in advance, so you deliberately didn't go. When the matter was over, you jumped out and said it after the fact." Ruan Hongling was also angry in her heart. Where did this guy come from? He's like a yawning toad. What a big tone. What does he think of my sister Zi Yuan? Ruan Hongling couldn't help but sneer, who doesn't know how to say it? I just don't know if he has any real ability. The young woman glanced at them proudly and said disdainfully, "How dare a 3-tailed fox spirit and a little cultivator who hasn't even cultivated the supreme yang qi be so arrogant?" Su Chan and Ruan Hongling were both furious. Just as they were about to speak, Li Yundong stopped them and winked at them. Zhong Qingsong also turned his head and shouted in a low voice, "Qing'er." The young woman named Qing'er snorted and turned her head away. Her nose was in the air, and her face was full of arrogance. Zhong Qingsong smiled at Zi Yuan and said, "This is my disciple. She has been spoiled by me and is a little proud. Please excuse her." Zi Yuan smiled faintly and said, "It doesn't matter. It's normal for young people to be arrogant." Qing'er glanced at her and suddenly asked, "Are you very old? Why do you speak like an old man?" Li Yundong saw that the young woman's words were a little presumptuous and unruly, and she didn't know any etiquette at all. He frowned and said without waiting for Zi Yuan to speak, "Zhenren Zhong, what can I do for you? If there's nothing else, we'll take our leave first." Zhong Qingsong saw that the other women in their group, including Zi Yuan, were all following Li Yundong's lead. As soon as he spoke, the others fell silent. He was secretly amazed. Zhong Qingsong glanced at Li Yundong, turned his head, and said to Zi Yuan with a smile, "Well, I won't lie in front of a Jinren. I heard that Jinren Zi Yuan is also participating in this tea art competition, so I want to come over and ask for some face. I hope that Jinren Zi Yuan can give me some face." Zi Yuan smiled and said, "What's the matter? If it's convenient, we will help each other." Zhong Qingsong smiled and said, "That's great. If Jinren Zi Yuan can withdraw from the competition, I will owe you a favor." As soon as he finished speaking, the expressions of Su Chan and Ruan Hongling suddenly changed. Li Yundong and Zhou Qin looked angry, and Zi Yuan also frowned slightly and asked, "Why do you want me to withdraw from the competition?" Zhong Qingsong smiled and said, "Because the organizer of this time is also my partner. In order not to hurt everyone's friendship, I think it's better for Jinren Zi Yuan to withdraw from the competition." His words were polite, but there was a hint of command and threat in them. Zi Yuan's face was as dark as water. She didn't say anything and just looked at Li Yundong. Li Yundong snorted in his heart and said, "Jinren Zhong, do you mean that since you have already intervened in this matter, this is the meat in your mouth, and others can't touch it?" Zhong Qingsong smiled politely, but he replied, "Jinren Li, you're too serious, but that's what I mean." Li Yundong had been planning for the matter in front of him for a long time. When it came to the last minute, how could he be willing to give in? He laughed and said angrily, "Then if you touch everything, won't everyone in the world want to live?" Zhong Qingsong looked at Zi Yuan with a cold expression and said, "Jinren Zi Yuan, what do you think?" The implication of his words was, "I'm asking Zi Yuan, and you, Li Yundong, should stop." Zi Yuan smiled slightly and said, "Jinren Li's meaning is my meaning." Zhong Qingsong's expression changed, and Qing'er, who was beside him, sneered and said, "Master, what's there to say to this self-deprecating guy? Let her participate in the competition. When the time comes, I will also participate. I want to see Jinren Zi Yuan's ability." Ruan Hongling couldn't help but say angrily, "Watch your mouth." Qing'er snorted and said, "What? You can do it, but I can't say it?" Now in the cultivation world, who doesn't know that Jinren Zi Yuan has abandoned herself and mingled with the people of the Fox Zen school? The 6 sects are in an uproar now. They all feel that they have been deceived and are discussing how to make trouble for you. I think, Jinren Zi Yuan, if you have time to join in the fun, you'd better think of a way to protect yourself first. As she said this, she glanced at Li Yundong again with a look of disdain. As for you, since you are so greedy and lustful, you should take your fox spirit and find a cave to hide in and live a good life. What are you doing out here? Do you really think of yourself as an invincible great cultivator? Qing'er's words made Li Yundong angry in his heart, but at this time, in public, he couldn't do anything. His face was indifferent, and no one could see any clues. He made a gesture to stop Ruan Hongling and Su Chan, who were about to curse. Without looking at Qing'er, he said coldly to Zhong Qingsong, "Go and tell your friend from the organizer that I will take his 2 million yuan. You are a piece of meat near the mouth of a tiger. I, Li Yundong, will take it this time." After that, he turned around and left. As soon as Li Yundong left, Zhou Qin immediately turned around and followed him. Su Chan and Ruan Hongling glared at Zhong Qingsong and Qing'er at the same time, then turned around and followed Li Yundong. Zi Yuan opened her mouth and wanted to say something, but she sighed helplessly and followed them. Zhong Qingsong glanced at Qing'er helplessly and said, "You really can't control your mouth. If I had known earlier, I wouldn't have brought you out. Now, you have offended the cultivators of 2 sects. Qing'er snorted and said, "It's nothing. I learned tea art from my master when I was a child. It's an ancestral skill. Why should I be afraid of her? Besides, now that the Zhengyi school has sealed the Linggong sect, this matter has spread like wildfire. Zi Yuan is just a stray dog. What's there to be afraid of? As for Li Yundong, he is just a greedy and lustful person. What's so great about him? Although Zhong Qingsong scolded her verbally, he felt that Qing'er was right in his heart. After saying a few words, he didn't take this matter to heart anymore. After Li Yundong and the others left the workers' cultural palace in anger, the two little girls, Wan Hongling and Su Chan, couldn't help but curse one after another. You be ****, you really have no manners. Su Chan was so angry that her cheeks puffed up. I'm so angry. Yundong, you have to teach her a good lesson. Li Yundong snorted and said, she is a female cultivator. How can I teach her a lesson? If I win, it will be an unfair victory. If I lose, others will say that I bullied her. Zi Yuan sighed and said, actually, we can take a step back. Li Yundong turned his head and said angrily, take a step back. Which step would be the end? If I can take a step back today, I can take a step back tomorrow. If you don't have a diamond, don't take on this porcelain work. Since they dared to open this challenge, they should be mentally prepared to be challenged. I want to see what kind of ability this arrogant woman has. Zi Yuan, if you don't want to participate in the competition, I won't stop you. Teach me tea skills, and I'll participate. Zi Yuan sighed and said, look at how angry you are. You can actually cultivate to such a level. You're really an anomaly. Li Yundong laughed angrily and said, Li Yundong, only pay attention to 4 words in cultivation, the state of mind is not hindered. I don't think I'm a person who causes trouble. I don't take the initiative to bully others, but if others take the initiative to bully me, I will definitely not let them have a good time. Zi Yuan, I think you are too modest, making others think that you are weak and easy to bully. Now that your sect is declining, everyone is stepping on your head. I'm so angry just by looking at it. How can you bear it? Wan Hongling, who was standing to one side, felt like a confidant. She nodded vigorously and said loudly, Li Yundong, you finally said something reasonable today. Li Yundong glared at her and was so angry that he laughed. He scolded her with a smile, I don't think what you said is reasonable. After being scolded by Li Yundong, not only did Zi Yuan not feel angry, but she felt strange in her heart. She smiled helplessly and said, you are really overbearing. Li Yundong laughed and said, overbearing? Didn't you notice just now? The more modest you are, the more others think you are weak and easy to bully. External alchemy has the Chinese medicine business, so it doesn't allow others to point fingers. This Pine Valley cottage of Mount Huangshan has some tea business, but it actually wants us to withdraw from the competition? What a joke. They don't want us to walk. That's good, then I'll snatch all of their paths and make them have nowhere to go, //7854627895541. Chapter 310. Go to watch net. Li Yundong's words made Zi Yuan a little absent-minded for a moment. Ever since she had seen the shadow of her master in this boy, she had been subconsciously chasing after the shadow of her master in this boy. But now it seemed that he and her master were really two different kinds of people. Go to watch net. 7 KOM 113 Shui 4 net. Her master was modest, gentle, and tolerant, while the boy in front of her was jumping up and down, hating evil as his enemy. For a moment, Zi Yuan's eyes were a little confused. Seeing her like this, Li Yundong thought that Zi Yuan didn't want to participate in the competition, so he said, Zi Yuan, I know you have difficulties. If you don't want to participate in the competition, I won't force you. Hearing this, Zi Yuan suddenly woke up as if she had just woken up from a dream. She smiled and said, who said I don't want to? Li Yundong was stunned for a moment, then overjoyed. He laughed and said, "Are you willing?" Zi Yuan smiled slightly and said, "Tea art is not like other things. It can't be learned in a few days. Moreover, it will be very embarrassing for a man like you to go up and perform tea art." Li Yundong laughed and said, "If you are willing to participate, there is no need for me to go up and embarrass myself." Although Su Chan and Ruan Hongling didn't get along with each other, at this time, the two of them could be said to have a common enemy. Seeing that Zi Yuan had agreed to participate in the competition, they were both overjoyed. Even Zhou Qin, who had always been cold, couldn't help but smile. A few days later, the first China Tea Culture Challenge tournament began in the square of the Workers' Cultural Palace in Dongwu City. When Li Yundong and the others arrived in groups, they saw lanterns and streamers everywhere, and the crowd was surging. There were reporters holding cameras and cameras everywhere, snapping away at the sexy waitresses and elegant tea attendants. Many Furlan were murdered in an instant. Li Yundong was a little surprised. There are so many people? Su Chan was a crazy person. She was excited when she saw the lively scene. She cheered and clapped her hands. "It's so lively. Yundong, when will we go up?" Li Yundong looked around and saw that there were many manufacturers participating in the competition on the side. There were beautiful etiquette girls holding up all kinds of tea and manufacturer signs. People like them, who had participated in the competition in private capacities, were like scorpions defecating. Li Yundong smiled and said, "I don't know. There should be a draw later, right?" Zhou Qin looked around and said in a deep voice, "A lot of famous teas have arrived. Look over there, there's the Westlake Longjing, which is known as one of the top 10 teas in China. There's also the Dongting Biluakun, which is known as the frightening fragrance. Next to it is the Junshan silver needle, which is known as the golden inlaid jade. Next to the silver needle is the Yunnan pu'er tea, which is known as the edible antique tea." Zhou Qin looked at them one by one. Suddenly, her expression changed and she said in a low voice, "Li Yundong, look." Li Yundong looked in the direction of her finger and saw that Qing'er, the arrogant disciple of Zhong Qingsong, was also participating in the competition. However, although they were cultivators from the Pine Valley Cottage in Mount Huangshan, they didn't choose the tea leaves of Mount Huangshan. Instead, they chose Wui de Hong Pao. Li Yundong knew little about tea, so he asked in confusion, "What's wrong with this?" Su Chan explained to him with a smile, "This is the best tea. It's even more expensive than Huangshan Maofeng. I heard from my master that 20 grams of such top-grade de Hong Pao tea leaves can be sold for more than 100,000. Li Yundong couldn't help but be shocked. "What? Doesn't that mean that a sip of tea costs more than 100,000? Zi Yuan smiled slightly and said, "Tea culture has a long history. There are high-end tea leaves and low-end tea leaves. Anyone can afford to drink low-end tea leaves, but high-end tea leaves are the exclusive favorites of the rich. Go to the internet. 7KOM. Now, there are only 4 de Hong Pao tea trees left on the steep precipice of the Nine Dragons' Nest. With such a small output of tea, it's naturally extraordinarily expensive." Li Yundong couldn't help sighing. F***ck, I'm a dignified cultivator, and I can't even support my own disciples. These B***stards can actually drink more than 100,000 in a sip of tea. What kind of world is this? Su Chan pulled Li Yundong's hand and said with a smile, "I believe that you will make a lot of money in the future. I want to follow you and eat well." Li Yundong laughed and patted the girl's forehead. "Well, I'll take your auspicious words. But you have to eat less. With your appetite, even a mountain of gold will make you poor." Su Chan immediately pouted and looked resentful. "You haven't even made money yet, and you're already talking about me. You're so annoying. I clearly eat very little. Her innocent appearance made Zi Yuan and Zhou Qin smile. Li Yundong even laughed and rubbed her cheek. The group consisted of 1 man and 4 women. The man was handsome, and the women were beautiful. Each of them had a different temperament, and they immediately attracted the attention of many people. Many reporters and tourists took out their phones and cameras to take pictures of the group. Go to the internet. 7 KOM. Kai 98 when 1 Shui 0 net 6 Li Yundong and the others were talking and laughing when they suddenly heard a surprised voice coming from the side. Beauty, I found you again. Li Yundong and the others turned their heads and saw a young and handsome boy shouting at Su Chan with a face full of ecstasy. Li Yundong looked and thought, hey, isn't this the rich second generation who chased after Su Chan in Shantang 7 Li? Why is this guy here? Wait, there's a girl standing next to him. She seems very familiar. Su Chan frowned and tugged at Li Yundong's sleeve. I see this guy again. He's so annoying. Why is he haunting me? Li Yundong only glanced at Shenyu, and then his eyes quickly fell on a girl next to him. The girl had her back to Li Yundong and was curiously taking photos with the SLR camera in her hand. When she turned her face, Li Yundong was shocked. Isn't this Shenhui with a child's face and big breasts? Shenhui turned around and saw Li Yundong at a glance. She was also shocked. Why are you here? Shenyu glanced at Shenhui, approached her, and asked curiously, Sister, do you know this guy? Shenhui snorted. When she saw Shenyu coming over, she glanced at him with disgust and quietly moved away from him. She sneered and said, Of course I know him. We're old acquaintances. Oh. As she said this, she cast a malicious look at Li Yundong and smiled insincerely. Shenhui looked at the beauties beside Li Yundong and sneered, By the way, why are you here instead of staying in Tiannan City? Don't tell me you're also here to participate in the competition? Li Yundong thought of what had happened last time and felt a little embarrassed. He coughed dryly and said, What, you don't allow it? Shenhui smiled and said, How could I dare not allow it? However, if you are really here to participate in the competition, then I will give you a chance. In front of so many people here, if you can clean my shoes, then I promise you that you will win first place. If you don't want to, I promise you that you will lose the competition. Li Yundong was proud and arrogant. How could he stand such a girl with such a temper? He immediately pulled a long face and said with a chuckle, Why don't you kneel down and kowtow to me 3 times in front of so many people here? I will accept you as my disciple and not spank you. Otherwise, I will strip you naked and spank you. What do you think? Shen Hui's face immediately turned pale and she was so angry that her whole body was trembling. Li Yundong, don't be arrogant. Li Yundong sneered and said, It seems that I'm not the arrogant one. Shen Yu rolled his eyes and asked Shen Hui in a low voice, Sister, has this guy offended you? Shen Hui glared at him and said, It's none of your business. Shen Yu didn't care. For him, making trouble for Li Yundong was the thing he was most happy to do. It would be best to make this guy's face dirty, so that it would be more convenient for him to snatch his love away. Shen Yu smiled and looked like a playboy. He raised his chin and said to Li Yundong, Hey, I advise you to go back quickly. Don't participate in this competition. Ruan Hongling, who had been pressed down by Zi Yuan, finally couldn't stand it anymore. She jumped up and shouted, You 2 shameless things, what are you showing off here? Isn't it just that you have a great father? Get out of here, get out of here. Without your father, what are you? Su Chan surprisingly agreed. She nodded hard and made a face at Shen Yu. Shen Yu was shocked, but when he saw Ruan Hongling's angry look, he felt that when this girl was angry, there was also a special flavor, especially when Su Chan made a face. Her charming and cute appearance made his heart itch. In front of the beauty, Shen Yu was dazzled for a moment. He couldn't even walk and became a love-struck fool. Shen Hui felt disgusted watching from the side. She glared at Li Yundong fiercely and was about to leave when she saw a familiar figure coming over. She was immediately overjoyed and went over to greet him. "Dad." "Well, speak of the devil." Li Yundong and the others all looked over and saw Shen Hui throwing herself into the arms of an old man in his 60s. The old man was dressed in a suit and leather shoes. He was slightly fat, but his eyes were sharp and bright. Zhou Qin frowned and whispered in Li Yundong's ear, "This is Shen Wankai, the boss of the Wankai group in Tiannan City. He is a big shot in Tiannan City. I don't know why he came to Dongwu City. Maybe he is doing business?" While they were guessing, they saw Shen Yu, Shen Hui, and a few bodyguards next to him surround Shen Wankai and walk to the arena. Shen Wankai exchanged pleasantries with the host, Zheng Yuming, and the others on the arena, and then sat straight in the middle of the referee's seat. When Li Yundong saw this, he immediately took a deep breath. "No way. He is the referee?" Zhou Qin frowned. No wonder Shen Hui was so arrogant. It turns out that she knows that Shen Wankai is the referee. Well, with Shen Wansai's influence, his score will directly affect the scores of the other referees. No one else would dare to offend him. Su Chan looked worried. Then aren't we going to be in trouble?" Ruan Hongling was so angry that her face turned pale. What kind of world is this? A group of well-dressed guys look bright on the surface, but in fact, they are all dirty and dirty. Bah! I'm going to tell everyone. Zi Yuan hurriedly grabbed her and shouted, "Nonsense! Do you have any evidence? You're making trouble before the competition even starts." Zhou Qin also said in a low voice, "What should we do now? Should we advance or retreat? Hurry up and make a decision." For a moment, Li Yundong couldn't help but hesitate. He had never expected that he would encounter so many obstacles when he came to participate in a tea art competition. Before the competition even started, he had already encountered double unspoken rules, and at the same time, he was facing the double threat of the organizer and the referee. No matter how firm Li Yundong's will was, he couldn't help but feel nervous at this time. He frowned inwardly, but just as he was hesitating, he glanced at the arena and saw that Shen Hui was looking at him with a provocative look, as if to say, "Get out of here, lest you make a fool of yourself." Beside her, Shen Yu couldn't help but glance back and forth at Su Chan with a pair of lustful eyes. This time, Li Yundong was infuriated. His face was as dark as water, and he said flatly, "I once said that we cultivators should have the spirit of knowing that there are tigers in the mountain. If you retreat from such a small worldly matter, then what's the point of cultivating? Go home and do nothing. Everyone, please take your places. I'm going to accompany my teacher to have a meal. I'm sorry for the late update. Let's bow. //7854627895541 Chapter 311. Go to watch net. Li Yundong's resolute words made the people around him suddenly feel refreshed. Zi Yuan also nodded. Yes, we cultivators should indeed have the spirit of not fearing hardships and dangers. As the saying goes, man proposes, God disposes. Since we have already participated in the competition, we should have a clear conscience. Go to watch net. Zhou Qin was calm and shrewd by nature. It was hard to tell whether she was happy or angry at the moment. She just pondered for a while and said, "Since we are going to participate in the competition, we should pay special attention to the opponents of West Lake Longjing, Taiping Hokue, and Wui de Hongpao. These competitors are extremely difficult to deal with. Ruan Hongling had blind confidence in Zi Yuan. She said, "This is a competition of tea skills, not a competition of tea leaves. If whoever has the best tea leaves wins, then what's the point of holding such a challenge? Isn't it better to just hold an auction?" "Right, Sister Zi Yuan." Zi Yuan smiled slightly and didn't comment. Su Chan, the little girl, didn't know what to say. She just looked at this and that, feeling a little unhappy that she couldn't help. Li Yundong didn't pay attention to the little girl's abnormality. He said to Zi Yuan, "When you go on stage later, pay special attention to your surroundings. As the saying goes, you can't have the intention to harm others, but you can't have the heart to guard against others. You have to be wary of these guys playing tricks on some equipment." Zi Yuan smiled confidently. "Don't worry." They talked in private for a while. Not long after, the host of the tea culture and art competition gracefully went on the stage. At this time, the square of the Palace of Culture was surging with people. Not only were there a large number of media reporters, but there were also many businessmen who had heard the news and came to see the beautiful women. After the host made a brief opening speech on the stage, he invited the organizer, Zheng Yuming, to come on stage to give a speech. Zheng Yuming still inherited his authentic and mellow temperament of a nouveau riche. As soon as he got on the stage, his glittering gold necklace, gold bracelets, and gold rings attracted a burst of admiration from the audience. After Zheng Yuming read the opening remarks according to the script, he introduced the referees of the Tea Culture and Art Challenge on the stage one by one. Li Yundong saw that among the referees who were sitting upright, there were scholars who wrote books, well-known media hosts, business tycoons, and even fashion models. Li Yundong didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He whispered, "What kind of referees are they? Why are there all kinds of people? Do they know how to make tea?" Zhou Qin said, "I don't know about others, but Chen Wankai knows. As far as I know, he often attends all kinds of rare tea auctions." A while ago, Taiping Monkey King was sold at a high price, and he bought it. Li Yundong laughed. "That's good. The only one who understands tea is my enemy." "Very good, very good." Li Yundong laughed at himself. He saw that the representatives on the stage had already begun to draw numbers. When it was Zi Yuan's turn, she gracefully stepped onto the stage. Her otherworldly temperament caused an uproar under the stage. Watch net. 7 KOM. The other manufacturers and the tea lady looked at Zi Yuan as if they were facing a formidable enemy. Ruan Hongling, who was under the stage, smiled proudly and said, "The eyes of the masses are clear." Li Yundong chuckled. After Zi Yuan stepped down from the stage, he looked at the ranking on the stage and suddenly asked in confusion, "Hey, Zi Yuan is the last one? She's the finale." Zhou Qin suddenly sneered and said, "This is the worst position. Tasting tea is like tasting fresh food. Naturally, it is the most advantageous at the beginning. Because at that time, the referees who taste tea will have a refreshing mouth, they will naturally be able to taste the fragrance of the tea more, so they will give a higher score. But if they wait until the end, their taste buds will be a little tired, so the score will naturally be lower." Hearing this, Ruan Hongling said angrily, "Shameless. This must be a black box operation." Li Yundong frowned, but when he looked at the ranking above, he found that Qing'er, who had participated in the competition with Wui de Hongpao, was ranked second to last in front of Zi Yuan. He said, "Look, Qing'er from the Pine Valley Cottage is ranked in front of Zi Yuan. Isn't she afraid that the judges will not give a high score because of the fatigue of the taste buds?" Zhou Qin shook her head and said, "Wui de Hongpao is the champion of tea. Its taste is strong and mellow, which can't be replaced by other teas. Maybe this is their idea. They want to use the extremely fragrant tea fragrance of Wui de Hongpao to make the judges' taste buds tired." Zhenren Zi Yuan's Huangshan Maofeng has a light fragrance, so naturally, she will suffer a great loss. Hearing this, Li Yundong, Su Chan, and Ruan Hongling all cursed the organizers in unison. However, Zi Yuan, who was under the stage, was open-minded. She smiled and said, "It doesn't matter. The real tea art can't be framed by such a sneaky trick." When Li Yundong and the others saw that Zi Yuan was full of confidence, they also felt relieved and focused on watching the tea art competition that had already begun on the stage. They saw a young and beautiful tea lady on the stage. She was dressed in the Gusu style of the Ming dynasty, with a round collar and narrow sleeves. As soon as she came on the stage, she bowed to the crowd with her bright eyes, which immediately caused a burst of cheers. Li Yundong raised his head and saw that this beautiful woman was the tea lady who had been next to Zheng Yuming before. This tea lady was the first to appear on the stage because of the black box operation, so she naturally had a great advantage. She first carried her own tea set to the stage, placed it on the waist-high mahogany table, and then showed it to the audience one by one. At this time, there was a special cameraman on the stage. The camera was facing the table, and there was a huge plasma TV screen at the back of the stage, so that the audience could clearly see the close-up scene of the tea lady performing the tea art. Li Yundong looked over and saw that the tea chosen by the tea lady was Taiping Monkey King. He couldn't help asking, "Strange, isn't this tea lady representing Zheng Yuming? Isn't Zheng Yuming Taiguanin? Why is she using Taiping Monkey King? What kind of tea is this?" Zhou Qin was born in a wealthy family and knew a lot about tea culture. She said, "Taiping Monkey King is also a famous tea in China. Together with Westlake Longjing, Huangshan Maofeng, and Wui de Hongpao, it is the exclusive imperial tea of the State Council. Let's go." 7 K.O.M. Zheng Yuming has the temperament of a nouveau riche and specializes in Taiguanin. Although Taiguanin also has the best tea, there is still a certain gap between it and Taiping Monkey King, Westlake Longjing, Huangshan Maofeng, and Wui de Hongpao. Therefore, if they don't want to be at a disadvantage in terms of tea, they must choose Taiping Monkey King to fight. Zi Yuan, who was standing to one side, nodded and said with a smile, "Yes, although this Taiping Monkey King has not been famous recently, it is still a great tea, especially the mother tea produced by the authentic monkey pit. It is even more valuable, not inferior to my Huangshan Maofeng. Moreover, just by listening to its name, you can tell that it has the character Kuei in it. Naturally, it's a great tea." While everyone was talking, the tea lady moved gracefully and lit a bunch of incense on an incense burner next to her. Zhou Qin explained, "The tea arts of China's black tea, green tea, and oolong tea are different. Taiping Monkey King belongs to green tea, so according to the green tea art, the first procedure is to light incense and burn the incense burner to get rid of delusion." At this time, the tea lady on the stage gently washed each teacup with water. Zhou Qin said, "This is the second set of procedures, called Wash the Cup of Ice Heart to go to the mortal world." Hearing this, Zi Yuan couldn't help but look at Zhou Qin up and down. She smiled and said, "Do you know a lot about tea art?" Zhou Qin smiled slightly and said, "It's not a study. It's just that there are some good mechanical tribute tea all year round. I've come into contact with some in my spare time before." Zi Yuan chuckled and said to Li Yundong, "You've accepted a good disciple." Li Yundong laughed and waved his hand. "You're flattering me." While they were talking and laughing, they saw the tea lady performing all the way. She had already performed the fifth procedure, moistening the lotus heart with sweet tea dew. She poured water into the teacups placed on the square table and made tea. At this time, Zhou Qin suddenly said, "Here comes the highlight." Li Yundong's spirit was lifted and he looked at the stage. At this time, those who knew about tea art all looked at the tea lady with their eyes wide open. Zhou Qin explained softly and quickly, this is the sixth procedure of the green tea art, also known as the 3 nods to the water phoenix. It's one of the procedures of all the tea art, and it's also the one that tests one's skills the most. Li Yundong saw the tea lady lift the teapot high and let the water pour straight down. Then, she used the strength of her wrist to lift it up and down and pour water into it. She repeated this 3 times, turning the tea leaves in the water. At this time, the slow motion of the tea lady performing the 3 nods of the phoenix, kung fu, appeared on the plasma screen. The tea lady's elbow and wrist were flat, and her wrist was soft and boneless. The water splashed down like silver satin. Everyone saw the sound of water 3 times loud and 3 times soft, the water line 3 times thick and 3 times thin, the water flow 3 times high and 3 times low, and the water flow 3 times up and down in the pot 3 times. The movements of the 3 nods of the phoenix were surprisingly consistent. In the end, the amount of tea in these tea bowls was exactly the same, as if it had been carefully calculated. At this time, the audience under the stage could see the key points clearly. They let out a burst of exclamation, and applause and cheers rang out at the same time. Zi Yuan also smiled faintly and nodded slightly. Not bad. You've worked hard. Although Su Chan and Ruan Hongling despised the dirty and despicable behavior of the organizer, they had to admit that the tea lady was indeed very good at tea art. The 3 nods of the phoenix just now could be called a unique skill. The tea lady also knew that she had performed very well. The next performance was like flowing clouds and flowing water, becoming more and more smooth and confident. When she finished her performance and stepped off the stage, the audience immediately burst into thunderous applause. The referee, who was tasting tea, also nodded and praised her. Chen Wankai even showed a look of appreciation and exclaimed, "Not bad, good tea art." The tea lady who appeared first won the first prize and won a full house. The pressure on the tea ladies who appeared next suddenly increased. Although some of them also performed well, no one could surpass the tea lady who appeared first. Some people even made mistakes in nervousness, causing the referee on the referee's seat to frown secretly. After performing all the way, it was finally time for Wui de Hongpao, the top scholar in tea art, to appear. A plain-looking but arrogant girl jumped onto the stage with a rocket-like cannon. The arena was 1.5 meters high. Ordinary people with little strength might not be able to climb up, but she had pulled herself up from the ground. Suddenly, the sleepy audience under the stage was refreshed and applauded. For a moment, the host on the stage was a little embarrassed, so he had to say in a hurry, "The next contestant is Lin Xueqing from Wui de Hongpao. Please welcome her." Lin Xueqing stood proudly and said something amazing as soon as she opened her mouth. "Today, I want to show everyone what real tea art is." She was young, so when she spoke, there was an uproar under the stage. Someone sneered and said, "You're so young, but you're so arrogant." The referee on the referee's seat showed a disapproving look. Only Chen Wankai chuckled and said, "What a young hero." Everyone saw that Lin Xueqing's tone was amazing, and the tea she chose was also extremely expensive, top-grade de Hongpao, so they stopped making noise for a while and waited to see her make a fool of herself. Li Yundong and the others also stared at her with their eyes wide open. Ruan Hongling and Su Chan kept muttering, constantly cursing the arrogant girl for making a fool of herself. Li Yundong saw that Lin Xueqing's tea art procedure was different from before, so he asked curiously, "She seems to be different from the others." Zhou Qin said to Li Yundong in a low voice, "This Wui de Hongpao is an oolong tea. The tea art procedure of oolong tea is different from that of green tea. They are preparing for use, respectfully inviting people to sit down, burning incense to calm the atmosphere, peacock spreading its tail, Meng Chen bathing in the rain, high mountain flowing water, black dragon entering the palace, 100 zhang flying waterfall, spring breeze brushing the face, Jade Liquid Moving Pot, Sweet Dew, and Phoenix 3 Nods. Li Yundong asked, is there also Phoenix 3 Nods? Zhou Qin said, yes, this is an extremely important part of the tea art. Let's see how she performs. The two of them were whispering to each other when they saw Lin Xueqing performing skillfully all the way. However, she had been too arrogant before, so everyone was prejudiced and felt that it was nothing special. Some people even booed her loudly. But Lin Xueqing didn't care. She suddenly held the teapot beside her in the palm of her hand and said loudly, the water made by ordinary fire is ordinary after all. Look at the water made by the Wuming fire to make this tea. She held the teapot high in one hand, and her whole body seemed to have frozen for a moment, not moving at all. Seeing her strange posture, the audience burst into laughter and teased her, is this your tea art? It's so funny. It's so ugly. Wuming fire. I'm so angry with you. Get off the stage. While the audience was clamoring, the teapot in Lin Xueqing's hand suddenly emitted bursts of white qi. The white qi rolled on the arena, and in an instant, it formed the shape of a phoenix, which was lifelike and dreamlike. Everyone was stunned and speechless for a moment. Zi Yuan was also shocked. Zi Yuan's expression also changed. She exclaimed, condensing qi into form. She's amazing. Only after cultivating the yin qi in her body into pure yang qi can she control her qi so well. This is the top realm of the yang spirit. No wonder she's so arrogant. Lin Xueqing held the teapot and shook her wrist. The phoenix, which was made of steam, nodded. Immediately, a stream of hot water gushed out of the mouth of the phoenix, which was the mouth of the teapot. Everyone felt that this stream of water was like water from the ninth heaven falling from the sky. The water surged in the teacup, and a mist rolled out, echoing with the phoenix, making it look more and more dreamy. The sound of water in the teacup was like the chorus of birds, and all birds were paying homage to the phoenix. Everyone stared blankly at Lin Xueqing shaking her wrist 3 times, and the phoenix nodded 3 times. The tea bowls on the tea table were also filled to the brim. 3 bowls of Wui de Hong Pao tea were filled to the brim. Lin Xueqing's move shocked everyone present. Shen Wankai stood up excitedly and said loudly, I didn't expect to see the real phoenix nodding 3 times here. Good. Bring it over and let me have a taste. Immediately, an MC in a cheongsam came up and brought the tea to the judges. The other judges tasted it and were all full of praise. Shen Wankai even praised it 3 times in a row. Good. 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 At this time, almost everyone in the field reacted, and their cheers shook the sky. Li Yundong and Zhou Qin looked shocked and shocked. They looked at each other and were secretly shocked. Only Zi Yuan's face was as dark as water, and there was a faint worry in her eyes. She thought to herself, Lin Xueqing is performing tea art with her cultivation skills. Not only is her tea art exquisite, but her cultivation skills are also not inferior to mine. I wonder if I can beat her, // 785462789541. Chapter 312. Go to Watch Network. Lin Xueqing's subversive performance not only impressed the audience, but even Li Yundong couldn't help but say in surprise, can cultivation be used to perform tea art? Ruan Hongling looked at Zi Yuan worriedly. She opened her mouth, but swallowed the words in her mouth. Go to watch. 7 KOM. At this time, Lin Xueqing, who was on the stage, cupped her fists and then left the stage. The host came up to say a few opening remarks. When she was about to step off the stage, she bumped into the tea table and almost staggered, causing the audience to burst into laughter. Her action was nothing, but when she stepped off the stage, the host cast a glance at Zheng Yuming. Zheng Yuming immediately understood and nodded secretly. The two of them had been looking at each other secretly, but Zhou Qin, who had been staring at the stage, noticed it. She felt that she hadn't cultivated yet, so she didn't know anything and couldn't help Li Yundong in any way. So she kept staring at the stage vigilantly. Seeing that the expressions of the two of them were not right, she immediately said, "Li Yundong, tell Zi Yuan to be careful. I'm afraid that they might have done something to the table." Li Yundong was stunned and blurted out, "I know they are shameless, but they can't be that shameless, can they? How could they do something to the table?" He looked at Zi Yuan, who had already come to the edge of the stage, and said in a low voice, "There's no way to remind her now. What should we do?" Ruan Hongling said, "Let me do it. I'll send a voice transmission to Sister Zi Yuan." She said in a private voice transmission, "Sister Zi Yuan, you have to pay attention to this tea table. I'm afraid that there's something wrong with it." Zi Yuan was stunned, but her face remained calm. She just glanced in the direction of Li Yundong and the others and nodded slightly. After the host finished the introduction, Zi Yuan held her own tea set, which was filled with teapots, and went to the stage gracefully. As soon as she appeared on the stage, her appearance and temperament were far better than that of the previous tea lady. Everyone under the stage suddenly gasped and was shocked by her amazing beauty. Even the most daring men didn't dare to have the slightest blasphemy in their minds when they saw her. The boldest one was just thinking in his heart, does such a beautiful and ethereal woman really belong to this world? What kind of man could be worthy of her? At this time, Zi Yuan was wearing a white dress, which had the classical charm of Han clothing and the modern atmosphere of modern fashion. She really looked like a fairy who had come from heaven to earth, which was amazing. Watch net. Zi Yuan held the plate and bowed to the audience below the stage. Then, she put the plate on the tea table in front of her. As soon as she put it down, the tea table suddenly tilted. Fortunately, Zhou Qin had discovered some clues before, and Zi Yuan had been reminded again. She immediately poured out the zhenqi in her body silently and gently supported the foot of the tea table. She glanced around and saw that the foot of the tea table had been tampered with. There was a mechanism installed. As long as a switch was turned next to the tea table, the four corners of the tea table would immediately become extremely loose, and if something was placed on it, it would tilt. Because Zi Yuan's reaction was extremely fast, the people under the stage did not notice the abnormality for a while. They only saw the tea table shake a little and then stabilize again. But at this time, all the zhenqi and energy in Zi Yuan's body were used to support the tea table. If she wanted to perform the tea art calmly, it would be difficult. She immediately sent a voice transmission to Li Yundong for help. "Li Yundong, this table has indeed been tampered with. With a little strength, it will tilt. Your zhenqi is strong. Hold this table in the air so that I can wave it." Li Yundong didn't know how to use voice transmission. Without saying a word, he immediately raised his palms in the air and lifted the table from a few meters away. As soon as Li Yundong's powerful Yuanyang genuine qi surged over, Zi Yuan immediately felt a lot more at ease. She breathed a sigh of relief, took back her zhenqi, and began to concentrate on performing the tea art. Zheng Yuming, who was under the stage, saw that Zi Yuan's tea table was placed on the tea table as stable as Mount Tai. He suddenly widened his eyes and looked at the host. The host was also stunned and made an innocent gesture, indicating that he had indeed done it. Only Zhong Qingsong, who was next to Zheng Yuming, saw the clues. He smiled slightly and walked toward Li Yundong. When he walked up to Li Yundong, he secretly used qi and slapped Li Yundong with his palm, saying, "Jinrenli, shall we shake hands?" Li Yundong was shocked and had to secretly withdraw his zhenqi. He turned around and slapped the other party's palm. With a bang, the two of them shook hands and immediately froze in place like stone statues. Go to see net. Kai 98 when 1 Shui 0 net 6 at this time, without the support of Li Yundong's Xinqi, the tea table suddenly tilted. Zi Yuan was quick to react. Xinqi immediately gushed out of her body and supported the tea table again. At the same time, she sent a voice transmission to Ruan Hongling, help, hurry up. Seeing that Zhong Qingsong was coming to make trouble for Li Yundong, Ruan Hongling immediately gritted her teeth. The Xinqi in her body gushed out and supported the tea table. However, her Xinqi was not strong enough, and she couldn't hold it a few meters away. Su Chan, who was beside her, saw that the situation was not good. She didn't care that she didn't deal with Ruan Hongling, so she immediately drove the Xinqi in her body to help. The two of them worked together to support the tea table. The secret battle on and off the stage only happened in the blink of an eye. The surrounding audience, even the cameras staring at the tea table, did not notice anything unusual. Only Lin Xueqing saw that Li Yundong and her master were secretly competing with Xinqi and internal qi. She frowned and walked over to separate the two of them. But when Li Yundong saw her coming over, he thought that Lin Xueqing also wanted to take advantage of the situation. He was angry in his heart. He snorted coldly and slapped Lin Xueqing with his other hand. Lin Xueqing was shocked and immediately fought back. Li Yundong turned his wrist and firmly clasped the other's wrist with his 5 fingers. Lin Xueqing did not show any weakness. She also turned her wrist, and her 5 fingers were like steel cables on Li Yundong's wrist. For a moment, Li Yundong was holding Lin Xueqing and Zhong Qingsong by himself. Zhong Qingsong was shocked to see that Li Yundong still had the strength to start another battle and drag Lin Xueqing into it when he was competing with his Xinqi with all his strength. He was shocked and horrified. Lin Xueqing was also shocked, but she was also unconvinced. She drove the pure yin qi in her body and Zhong Qingsong's pure yang qi to attack Li Yundong from both sides. Li Yundong only felt that half of his body was in a world of ice and snow, and the other half was in the scorching sun. It could be said that he was in a world of ice and fire. He took a deep breath and urged the majestic and vigorous Jindan's qi in his body to attack Zhong Qingsong and Lin Xueqing's bodies from the left and right. It was as if he was fighting with the Xinqi of the two at the same time. For a moment, he was not at a disadvantage. The three of them were fighting with their Xinqi. After a while, a line of white qi rose from the top of Li Yundong's head. At first, it was like a gossamer, but after a while, it rose and became as thick as a finger. Zhong Qingsong's face became redder and redder, like a drunken Guan Yu, while Lin Xueqing's face became paler and paler, like a thin piece of paper. Not long after, the three of them's abnormality was noticed by the surrounding audience, and they immediately began to talk about it. For a moment, whispers and whispers could be heard from below the stage, and more people's gazes were directed towards the three of them. Zi Yuan saw that the white qi above Li Yundong's head was becoming more and more vigorous, thicker and thicker, and it was condensed into the sky. She held the teapot in one hand and pressed the lid of the teapot with the other. She said in a clear voice, "Since Lin Xueqing has let everyone see the real 3 nods of the phoenix, today I will let everyone see the long-lost 8 immortals crossing the sea together." Zi Yuan's voice was bright and soft, attracting the attention of the audience again. Zi Yuan suddenly opened the lid of the teapot and grabbed the void in the air. The Xinqi in her body suddenly surged out and grabbed the white qi rising from the top of Li Yundong's head. Everyone saw that the white mist was flowing horizontally, like a Milky Way bridge. Zi Yuan held the teapot in her hand and quickly completed the 3 nods of the phoenix. Then, at a speed that was difficult to see with the naked eye, she used her 5 fingers as a pen. Her fingers flew up and down, quickly drawing and carving on the condensed mist in the air. After a while, Zi Yuan pecked, carved, painted, twisted, held, pinched, and cut. After a while, she drew an old man riding on the back of a donkey in the air, holding a wooden stick with a gourd hanging on it. She took a picture of him in the camera and then projected it on the plasma screen. His smile was lifelike. It was Zhang Guolao, one of the 8 immortals, riding a donkey upside down. At this time, both the referee on the stage and the audience were in an uproar. They were so shocked that they couldn't control themselves. After Zi Yuan finished drawing Zhang Guolao riding a donkey upside down, she turned her wrist and began to draw another character. After a while, everyone saw a middle-aged man with a bare chest and an iron crutch in his hand. It was Iron Crutch Li. At this time, everyone was already stunned. They saw Zi Yuan's fingers on the stage instantly draw a lifelike immortal from the illusory white qi. Her methods were like a miracle, and she was as elegant as a fairy. Later, Zi Yuan's hands flew left and right, drawing Han Zhongli, Lan Caihe, He Xiangu, Lu Dongbin, Han Xiangzi, and Chao Guojiu one by one. For a time, everyone could see the 8 immortals in the White Qi River in different postures. They were riding the clouds and the mist, as if they were going to cross the sea. Especially at this time, it was daytime. When the sun shone on the Qi River, it suddenly reflected light and formed a long line. It was really like an immortal descending to the world, dazzling everyone. At this time, there was another exclamation from the audience, and everyone was dumbfounded. After Zi Yuan finished drawing all the 8 immortals, she suddenly rolled up her sleeves gracefully and gently with one hand. Her other hand was like Buddha picking flowers. With a flick of her finger, she gently plucked the lifelike Zhang Guolao out of the long river of white qi. Then, with a flip of her wrist, she held one of the teacups in front of the tea tray. Suddenly, Zhang Guolao stayed on the cup of tea and did not dissipate for a while. Then, Zi Yuan, like the Queen Mother picking peaches, picked the other 7 immortals one by one and placed them on the teacups in front of her. Everyone saw that the 8 immortals were floating above the 8 bowls of tea. The tea in the bowls was emitting waves of hot air, making the 8 immortals look like they were in a fairyland. While they were watching in fascination, Zi Yuan suddenly waved her sleeve, and a gust of wind rose from her sleeve, immediately dispersing the mist. The illusory 8 immortals immediately surged and melted into the tea in the teacup. At this time, Zi Yuan stood gracefully on the stage and said to everyone on and off the stage, "Before, there was the 3 nods of the phoenix, and now the 8 immortals have crossed the sea together. Please comment on who is better." After she finished speaking, everyone looked at her in a daze. The scene was so quiet that one could hear a pin drop. I'll take a bus back to Suzhou tonight, / 785462789541. Chapter 313. Go to watch net. After Zi Yuan showed off her kung fu, the audience on and off the stage were all dumbfounded for a moment. Only Chen Wankai was so excited that his face turned red. He suddenly stood up and walked toward the stage, trembling all over. His mouth kept trembling, and his eyes were fixed on the bowl of Huangshan Maofeng tea, which was floating with white smoke. After a long time, he said in a trembling voice, "This kind of tea art really should only exist in heaven. How many times can I hear it in the human world?" Go to watch net. 7 KOM. Master, can drinking this tea make you immortal? Although Chen Wankai saw that Zi Yuan was not only beautiful, but also young and eloquent, he didn't dare to regard the person in front of him as a vase. He knew that only a grandmaster tea art master could have such a good work, so he respectfully called Zi Yuan master and didn't dare to offend her in the slightest. Zi Yuan smiled slightly and cupped her hands, saying, "I won't be able to achieve immortality, but I can rejuvenate my qi and focus my mind to prolong my life. There was a slight look of disappointment in Chen Wansai's eyes, but he soon became excited again and asked respectfully, "Can I have a taste?" Zi Yuan elegantly spread out a palm and gestured, "Go ahead." At this time, it was extremely quiet on and off the stage. Except for Li Yunyang, Zhong Qingsong, Lin Xueqing, and Su Chan, or Wan Hongling, who were using Zhenqi to drag the tea table, everyone was staring at the stage and Chen Wankai eagerly. They couldn't wait to drag this old man down, then say a few words to this beautiful fairy and drink a bowl of immortal tea. Chen Wankai was so excited that his hands were trembling. He stretched out his hand to pick up the cup of tea from Zhang Guolao. As he held the teacup in his hand, it swayed in the air and splashed a lot of tea, causing many people under the stage to criticize him in their hearts. Shen Wankai brought the teacup to his mouth and carefully took a sip. Then, he raised his head and drank it all in one gulp. He only felt that when this cup of tea entered his throat, his entire body had heated up. His entire body was steaming hot and filled with strength. However, when the tea reached his stomach, there was a coolness and fragrance in this heat, making him feel relaxed and refreshed. Even Chen Wankai himself didn't know whether it was because Zi Yuan's previous methods were so amazing that he had a strong psychological suggestion that he could transcend the mortal world and become a saint after drinking this bowl of immortal tea, or that this bowl of Huangshan Maofeng was really fragrant and elegant, which was unparalleled in the world. After Chen Wankai drank a cup of tea, he couldn't help but burst into tears. After staying on the stage for a long time, he let out a long sigh and said in a choked voice, "I've lived for most of my life and been to countless places. This is the first time I've seen such a tea art that only immortals have. This is the first time I've drunk the immortal tea that only immortals can drink. Only today do I feel that my life has not been in vain." Watch net. Color 98 when 1/0 net 6, some of the audience below the stage didn't know Chen Wansai's identity and only felt that this old man was a little neurotic. However, the referee on the stage and Zheng Yuming were very clear about Chen Wansai's background and strength. This old man started from scratch at the age of 16. When he was in his 20s, he had traveled all over the country. When he was in his 30s, he went south to Shenzhen and finally made his first bucket of gold in Shenzhen. From then on, he went out of control and established a large light industry group that spread all over the country. At the age of 50, he moved the group's headquarters back to his hometown of Tiannan City. He was warmly welcomed by the municipal government and became a tyrant in Tiannan City. His name not only resounded like thunder in the business world of Tiannan City, but also resounded in other provinces and cities. Those who knew Chen Wankai knew that this old man had single-handedly created a business kingdom. His business was spread all over Southeast Asia, the Middle East, and Europe. He had experienced countless storms, victories, and losses in his life. Not only had his character been tempered to be as tough as iron, but he had also cultivated a proud, arrogant, and domineering character. It was impossible for ordinary people to say a word or two to him, let alone receive such praise. When Zi Yuan saw that he was drinking tea with tears rolling down his face, she smiled and said, "Happiness hurts the heart, and sadness fills the lungs. Old people must maintain a calm state of mind when drinking tea. Otherwise, if they are not in a good mood, it will be useless to drink any elixir or medicine." Chen Wankai was usually called Mr. Shen, Old Master Shen, and so on. When had he ever been called an old man by a young man? Shen Yu and Shen Hui, who were watching from the backstage, were shocked at the same time. They thought to themselves, "Oh no, father is going to get angry. He hates people saying that he is old the most." However, when Chen Wankai heard Zi Yuan say that he was an old man, he surprisingly didn't get angry. Instead, he let out a long sigh and said, "Yes, you're right. I just drank this bowl of tea for nothing." After he finished speaking, he looked at Zi Yuan again and said with a flattering smile, "Can I have another cup?" Chen Wansai's identity was not an ordinary person. He was a judge and a business tycoon. When he said this, the audience below the stage all cursed in their hearts. The referee on the stage was even more resentful. "If you drink, won't we have one less cup to drink? Let us have a taste of this immortal tea." Zi Yuan didn't know what they were thinking, so she smiled at Chen Wankai and said, "Hongnom." Chen Wankai was overjoyed and immediately picked up another cup of tea, as if he had found a treasure. This time, he didn't drink it in one gulp. Instead, he tasted it carefully and slowly. He sighed and recited a poem, "The people of you left me the tea of Shanxi, and I picked the golden buds and poured them into the golden tripod. Go to see the net. 7 Kom. The pure porcelain is snow white and fragrant. How can it be like the elixir of immortals?" Zi Yuan smiled and said, "One drink washes away my drowsiness, and my feelings fill the world. Another drink clears my spirit, and suddenly it's like flying rain sprinkling light dust. 3 drinks and I can get the Tao. Why bother to get rid of troubles?" When Chen Wankai saw that Zi Yuan actually knew this extremely rare tea-drinking poem, he was immediately surprised and happy. He laughed and said in a somewhat shameless manner, "Since 3 drinks can help me achieve the Tao, then I still need one more cup." This time, Zi Yuan didn't say anything. The audience below the stage couldn't take it anymore and shouted, "You old man, you're really thick-skinned. 2 cups are not enough. You want a 3rd cup? You're too shameless. That's right. Hurry up and go down." Chen Wankai wasn't angry. He smiled and cupped his hands. He waved to the judges on the stage and said, "Everyone, come and have a taste." As soon as he called out, the other judges dared to get down from their seats and come to the tea table to taste the tea. Some of them had a little bit of knowledge in their stomachs. After drinking it, they shook their heads and praised it. Some of them didn't have much knowledge in their stomachs, so they kept shouting praises. Zheng Yuming, who was watching from below the stage, took advantage of the chaos on the stage and squeezed his way up. Just as he reached out to take the last cup of tea, Chen Wankai suddenly said, "Mr. Zheng, can you let me have this cup of tea?" Zheng Yuming's outstretched hand suddenly froze in midair. He raised his head and looked at Chen Wankai, forcing a dry smile on his face. Chen Wankai leaned forward, tilted his head, and glanced at him sideways. "What? You don't want to?" Zheng Yuming was shocked by Chen Wansai's gaze, and his hand immediately retracted as if it had been electrocuted. He cupped his hands and said with a smile, "Don't mention it. Old Master Shen wants to drink tea. How dare I snatch it?" Shen Wankai chuckled. He turned his head and looked at the other judges. "Do you have any objections?" He seemed to be asking, but these people didn't dare to say no. They shook their heads one after another and flattered him, "We are just half immortals who have drunk 2 cups of tea. Old Master Shen, you have drunk 3 cups in a row, so you are an immortal. Instead of having one more half immortal, it is better to have one more immortal." We can also follow the chickens and dogs to heaven together. Chen Wankai laughed and said, "I'm not an immortal." He pointed at Zi Yuan and said, "This is an immortal." As he said this, he cupped his hands and bowed to Zi Yuan, then picked up the teacup and said loudly to the audience below the stage, "Since everyone wants me to drink, I will drink it." Seeing that the old man was so thick-skinned, the audience laughed and scolded him one after another. Chen Wankai didn't care what they said. He raised his head and drank the 3rd cup in one gulp. The other people on the stage looked at him and saw that his cup was as clean as if it had been washed. There was not a drop of tea left. Although they were smiling, they felt lost in their hearts. Zheng Yuming, in particular, looked at the empty teacup and thought to himself, as the organizer of such a tea culture and art competition, I can't even drink a sip of this immortal tea. What's going on? Seeing that Chen Wankai had finished drinking, Zi Yuan smiled and said, "Since the tea has been drunk, please comment on who is in first place." After she said this, Zheng Yuming suddenly shivered and hurriedly winked at Chen Wankai. However, Chen Wankai acted as if he hadn't seen it. After drinking 3 bowls of tea, he calmed down again. He looked at Zi Yuan with interest and suddenly asked, "Why didn't you ask me this question first when I was about to drink the 3rd bowl of tea just now? If you had asked me at that time, I would have definitely said that you were first. Aren't you afraid that I will change my mind now that I have finished drinking the tea?" Zi Yuan smiled faintly and said, "Justice is in the hearts of the people. If you can speak against your conscience, then this immortal tea will become ordinary water. Even if you have become an immortal, you will become immortal. As the saying goes, Zhenren doesn't lie. That's exactly what I mean." Chen Wankai laughed, clapped his hands, and said loudly, "Well said. You will definitely be first. If you don't get first place, I, Chen Wankai, will be the first to disagree." As soon as he spoke, the other judges who were looking at him eagerly also said, "Zi Yuan should be first." Zheng Yoming's legs and stomach trembled when he heard this, and his face turned ashen. He was so angry in his heart that he thought, "You old B*****, how can you be so generous with my money? This is a competition held by me, and I paid for the prize money. In the end, I didn't even get a sip of the immortal tea, but I have to pay 2 million yuan? What kind of F***king logic is this?" Zheng Yuming burst into tears in his heart. He felt that this was the most tragic thing in the world, but the most tragic thing was that, he actually had to pretend to smile and then loudly announce that Zi Yuan was the first in the competition. What kind of world was this? Was there any justice? Was there any law? However, Zheng Yuming was not a simple person. The moment his face froze, he immediately squeezed out a smile. Then, with a look of joy and honor, he said loudly, "Congratulations to Miss Zi Yuan and her contestant, Huangshan Maofeng, for winning the first place in the competition." Seeing this, Su Chan and Ruan Hongling couldn't help but sigh. They only felt that this person was thick-skinned and changed his expression so quickly, which was really rare in the world. As soon as Zheng Yuming announced the result loudly on the stage, there was a burst of thunderous cheers from the audience. In this burst of cheers, the winner of the competition between Li Yundong, Zhong Qingsong, and Lin Xueqing was suddenly decided. Li Yundong was fighting 1 against 2, but he was not at a disadvantage at all. Although Zhong Qingsong and Lin Xueqing were both in the yang spirit yuanying phase, the Jinqi in their bodies was not comparable to Li Yundong's Jindan's qi, so they were suppressed by him. Li Yundong was secretly fighting with the 2 of them, but at the same time, he was listening in all directions. When he heard that Zi Yuan had won the first place, he immediately felt relieved. He didn't want to quarrel with the 2 of them in front of everyone, so he said, "The winner has been decided on the stage. Do we have to see life and death before we stop?" At this time, Zhong Qingsong and Lin Xueqing had used all their strength to resist Li Yundong's magnificent Jinqi. They were in a state of full concentration. Not to mention speaking, it was extremely difficult for them to even move their eyes. However, they saw that Li Yundong could still speak in the situation of 1 against 2. His voice was as clear as usual. They were suddenly shocked and shocked. Li Yundong looks like he is only 20 years old. Why is the Jinqi in his body so strong? How can he still have the strength to speak when fighting 1 against 2? Even if he had started cultivating in his mother's womb, he could never have cultivated to such a level. Starting from tomorrow, at 3 o'clock a day, and then until the 30th, 7 days, //7854627895541 Chapter 314. Go to watch net. Li Yundong saw the fear in their eyes, so he said, if this goes on, both sides will definitely suffer. In public, no one can get away with it. Why don't we each take a step back? What do you think? As he spoke, he withdrew a little zhenqi. Go to watch net. Kai 98 when 1 Shui 0 net 6. As soon as he withdrew his zhenqi, Zhong Qingsong and Lin Xueqing immediately breathed a sigh of relief, as if the mountain above their heads had been lifted half an inch and they could breathe. They also withdrew a little zhenqi. Seeing that they were returning the favor, Li Yundong knew that the two of them didn't want to make a big deal out of this. He tentatively took back some zhenqi. The three of them took back a little, and I also took back a little. Slowly, all three of them took back their zhenqi. The three of them stopped. Zhong Qingsong looked at Li Yundong in shock and asked involuntarily, "Who is your master? How did you cultivate such strong and condensed zhenqi? It's absolutely impossible for the Fox Zen school to teach you such cultivation kung fu." In the cultivation world, it was taboo to inquire about other people's sects and cultivation methods. Zhong Qingsong's question was very abrupt and rude. If he hadn't been extremely surprised and lost his composure, he would never have said it. Li Yundong's cultivation kung fu had been introduced to him by Su Chan and taught by Zi Yuan. How could he be willing to tell them his secret? He just glanced at Zhong Qingsong and said lightly, "I don't have a master." Zhong Qingsong naturally didn't believe it, but he couldn't do anything to Li Yundong. The cultivation world and the martial arts world were very similar in that whoever had the strongest cultivation had the right to speak. Since ancient times, there had been no first place in literature and no second place in martial arts. If scholars wanted to compete, they would bicker for hundreds of years and still not be able to tell who was better. However, the cultivation world was not like this. If anyone was not convinced, they could fight until they were convinced. No matter what, there would be a first place and a second place. Why was the Zhengyi school strong? Because the predecessor of Zhengyi school was the Five Pecks of Rice sect founded by Zhang Ling. This sect had flourished since the Han Dynasty and the Three Kingdoms period. Each generation was more capable than the last, and it had more than 100,000 disciples. During the period of Emperor Zhenzong of the Song Dynasty, the emperor summoned Zhang Zhengsui, the Taoist master of Zhengyi school, and from then on established the supreme position of Zhengyi school as the leader of the Holy Land of the Three Mountains. The cultivation sects in the world knew that they were no match for the Zhengyi school alone. Therefore, they created a loose organization of the 6 sects in an attempt to resist the expansion of the Zhengyi school. The strength that Li Yundong had shown at this time really frightened Zhong Qingsong of the Pine Valley Cottage in Mount Huangshan. He felt that his Pine Valley Cottage was not a big sect like the Zhengyi school, and it was not even as good as any of the 6 sects. Although his sect controlled the tea garden business near Mount Huangshan and had some money, when it came to fighting, only Zhong Qingsong and Lin Xueqing could fight. The others were just bystanders. Lin Xueqing was also clear about this. She was already convinced by Li Yundong's kung fu. She thought to herself, no wonder he could repel so many people from the 6 great sects alone. I thought most of the people from the 6 great sects were idiots. Now it seems that Li Yundong really has his own uniqueness. But even though she thought this in her heart, she refused to admit it. She didn't dare to make trouble for Li Yundong again, but she glanced at Zi Yuan in the arena. Go to the watch net. 7 KOM. At this time, the situation on the arena had been decided. The MC was about to give Zi Yuan the award when Lin Xueqing suddenly shouted, "I don't accept it." Everyone present heard her loud shout clearly, and for a moment, everyone's gaze turned towards her. Lin Xueqing was not afraid. She jumped into the arena, pointed at Zi Yuan with one hand, and said loudly, "I don't accept it. I didn't lose to you, but to him." As she said this, she pointed at Li Yundong. Everyone's eyes turned to Li Yundong in unison, and they were puzzled. They didn't understand why Lin Xueqing said that she had lost to someone who was not participating in the competition, and not to someone who was participating in the competition on the stage. Chen Wankai, who was on the stage, frowned, and there was a thoughtful expression on his face. Some people couldn't understand this, so they all booed. If you lose, you have to admit it. If you can't afford to lose, don't participate in the competition. Lin Xueqing had been spoiled by her master for many years, so she had never been humiliated like this. Her face turned red for a moment, and she said loudly, "If it weren't for Li Zhenren." Before she could say the words, Li Zhenren, Zhong Qingsong suddenly shouted and interrupted her, "Qing'er, shut up." His loud shout made everyone's ears buzz, and they felt a sharp pain. Everyone unconsciously covered their ears and grimaced in pain. Zhong Qingsong jumped onto the stage, glared at her sternly, and said in a low voice, "Don't you think you've caused enough trouble? Come with me." After that, he bowed slightly to Chen Wankai and Zheng Yuming on the stage to express his apology, and then dragged Lin Xueqing off the stage. When everyone saw that Lin Xueqing had been taken away by Zhong Qingsong, they also ridiculed and added insult to injury. Zheng Yuming saw that they didn't have time to collect the prize money and trophy for the second place. He was sad but also a little happy. Now I can save some prize money. At this time, the attention of the audience shifted from Li Yundong back to Zi Yuan on the stage. They didn't know that Li Yundong, Zhong Qingsong, and Lin Xueqing had secretly carried out a thrilling and fierce battle. Some people who were closer to them only saw the three of them shake hands for a while, and then let go of each other. They didn't know that so many things had happened. Not long after, the host and the MC began to award certificates and bonuses to the winners. 2 million was a huge sum of money. Naturally, it could not be in cash, and it was also impossible to write a check on the spot. Therefore, a symbolic giant cardboard was drawn on it, with the number 2 million written on it. When Zi Yuan received the award on the stage, she still looked calm. Especially after she received the award and stepped off the stage, Wan Hongling and Su Chan saw that they no longer needed to spend Zhenqi to support the tea table, so they withdrew their Zhenqi at the same time. The tea table collapsed with a loud bang. Watch net. For a moment, there was another uproar under the stage. Some people saw that as soon as Zi Yuan left the stage, the tea table collapsed with a loud bang, and the teapot and teacups were smashed into pieces. It was as if as soon as the tea fairy left, the tea table and teapot no longer needed to stay in the world, lest they dirty themselves. Everyone was so excited that they began to talk about Zi Yuan, and some people even focused on the background of Zi Yuan. Chen Wankai, who was on the stage, stared at Zi Yuan. He saw that when Zi Yuan walked to Li Yundong and the others, she was talking with him very closely, and there was a rare smile on her face. Obviously, she was very close to this man. Chen Wankai was shocked. Is this boy Zi Yuan's boyfriend? Who is he to be worthy of such a fairy-like figure? Chen Wankai cast a meaningful glance at Li Yundong. He wanted to go up and talk to him, but the occasion was not right. There were too many people, so he resisted the idea and walked off the stage. As soon as he reached the backstage, he saw Shen Yu and Shen Hui, who had been waiting impatiently, surrounding him. Shen Yu couldn't wait to say, "Dad, why did you give the first place to that guy? Didn't I tell you already?" Chen Wankai glanced at his son and asked calmly, "Oh? Why can't I give it to that guy?" Shen Yu waved his hands and said loudly, "That woman is in cahoots with that bastard Li Yundong." Chen Wankai was secretly unhappy, but he still didn't show his emotions. He asked, "Who is Li Yundong? How did he offend you?" Shen Hui wanted to add fuel to the fire, but she was keenly aware that her father seemed to be a little unhappy, so she cleverly closed her mouth again. Only Shen Yu didn't notice it at all. He still said loudly, "It's the bastard who stole my woman." Chen Wansai's face was as dark as water. He nodded and said noncommittally, "Well, I see. Come with me." As he spoke, he walked forward. At this time, Shen Hui had already concluded that her father was angry, but her brother didn't notice it at all. He was still following Chen Wankai, talking about how he had been bullied and blaming Chen Wankai for giving the first place to Zi Yuan. Shen Hui snickered in her heart and was ready to watch a good show later. Chen Wankai didn't respond at all along the way. He just walked into the cultural palace with his children. Along the way, he met acquaintances and greeted them warmly. When he came to a spacious office, he waited for Shen Yu and Shen Hui to enter the door and said in a deep voice, "Go close the door." Shen Hui cleverly took the initiative to close the door, but Shen Yu still kept talking to Chen Wankai, "Dad, hurry up and tell them. Maybe we can take back the first place. I just don't like that guy." Before he could finish his words, Chen Wankai suddenly became furious and slapped Shen Yu in the face. The slap was so hard that Shen Yu's body tilted and he almost fell to the ground. Shen Yu was stunned by this slap. His ears were buzzing, and his mind was blank. There was only one thought left in his mind: why did you hit me? Chen Wankai cursed angrily, "You be ****, you only know how to flirt with girls all day long. I can turn a blind eye to you playing with women, but last time I asked you to come to Dongwu City to do some business, you actually saw a woman and stayed for more than 10 days, causing the business to be ruined." I, Chen Wankai, had to personally apologize to her with a smile. Only then did I get this business back. Shen Yu covered his burning cheeks and said loudly, "Why did you ask me to do such a small business? Can't you just send a project manager?" Chen Wankai was so angry that his whole body was trembling. "You can't even do a small business. Do you want to do a big business? Don't you know that I started my business from a small one?" Shen Yu straightened his neck and scolded loudly, "What era is it now? How can it be compared with the past? This business in Dongwu City is not even enough for my monthly pocket money. You still asked me to do it. You obviously look down on me. Besides, if it fails, then so be it. It's not a big deal. Our Shen family doesn't care about such a small business. Why do you have to apologize?" Shen Wankai was furious and slapped him again. However, this time, Shen Yu was prepared. He raised his hand and blocked it. When Shen Wankai saw that he had blocked it, he became even angrier and slapped him in the face. This time, Shen Yu did not dare to block it head-on. He just protected his face and stiffened his neck to take a few hits. Chen Wankai scolded as he hit him, "I've told you so many times that the most important thing in business is reputation and credibility. Although the business is small, it can ruin my reputation. Do you know how much effort it will take for me to make up for it with just one sentence from you?" Chapter 315. Go to watch net. Li Yundong naturally didn't know what had happened backstage. When he saw Zi Yuan coming down from the stage, he went up to her with a smile, cupped his hands, and said, "Congratulations, Zhenren Zi Yuan, for coming back victorious." Su Chan also joined in the fun. She cupped her hands and said, "Congratulations." Her eyes were fixed on the huge check in Zi Yuan's hand. Go to watch net. Seeing her like this, Li Yundong couldn't help laughing and said, "Look at your silly face. This is fake. You can only get the money backstage when it's over." Su Chan didn't care and said to Li Yundong excitedly, "Are we rich now?" Li Yundong smiled and said, "If we have money, we will spend it immediately. We can't keep it in our hands." Su Chan stared at the fake check, as if she was afraid that it would run away in the next second. She said in a daze, "How much is 2 million? How long do I have to count?" Li Yundong laughed and reached out to pinch Su Chan's cheek. "You're a money grubber." Ruan Hongling couldn't help saying, "Hey, this seems to be the money my Shiji won. How did it become yours?" Although Su Chan and Ruan Hongling had fought together before, she didn't show any weakness at this time. She snorted and said, "If it weren't for my Yundong spirit reaches to the rainbow, would she have been able to transform into the 8 immortals crossing the sea?" Seeing that the two of them were about to quarrel again, Zi Yuan immediately said, "Don't quarrel. This is a prize that we can only get by working together. We can't get it without any one of us." Ruan Hongling and Su Chan looked at each other, snorted, and turned their heads away. Zhou Qin was quick-witted. She found a topic and said to Li Yundong, "By the way, why did Lin Xueqing say that she didn't admit defeat? She said that she didn't lose to Zhenren Zi Yuan, but to you?" Ruan Hongling opened her mouth and was about to speak angrily. Zi Yuan was afraid that she would say something bad, so she rushed to say, "In fact, the reason is very simple. Previously, she manipulated the Womanjai fire to boil the water in the teapot, and then used Jinqi to control the white qi to transform it into the shape of a phoenix. Although it was only a rough outline and not very detailed, in terms of Jinqi control, she has reached the realm of Yang spirit of Yuanying. She is not inferior to me at all. When I saw Li Yundong fighting with the master of the Pine Valley Cottage and his disciple, white qi was continuously coming out of the top of Li Yundong's head. This white qi was the Jinqi that only those with extremely vigorous Jinqi could produce. Because this Jinqi was not as loose and easy to dissipate as ordinary steam, I used this Jinqi to make the 8 immortals crossing the sea. Moreover, the 8 immortals could stay on the teacup and not dissipate. They were lifelike. In comparison, I naturally had a great advantage. Watch net. KOM. Cultivators are well aware of this, but the audience and the referee on the stage don't understand it, so it's natural for Lin Xueqing to be unconvinced. Zhou Qin had just asked casually, but after Zi Yuan's explanation, she realized that Lin Xueqing was not making trouble for no reason, but it was true. For a moment, she opened her mouth in surprise and looked at Li Yundong. When Li Yundong saw her looking over, he said with a smile, "In fact, if Zhenren Zi Yuan's control of Jinqi was not exquisite, no matter how vigorous my Jinqi was, it would be useless." Zhou Qin looked at Zi Yuan and then at Li Yundong, secretly admiring and envious of them. Seeing that Li Yundong and Zi Yuan were praising each other, Ruan Hongling couldn't help but say, "Well, you two don't have to flatter each other. It's so disgusting." Zi Yuan glared at Ruan Hongling and said angrily, "Hongling, you're getting more and more outrageous." Li Yundong coughed dryly and changed the topic. "I wonder when we can get the money later." Su Chan also laughed and said coquettishly, "You still say that I'm a miser? You are a big miser." Li Yundong pretended to be angry and glared at Su Chan, "If I wasn't a miser, how could I afford to raise you?" They chatted and laughed. After waiting for more than 10 minutes, someone came over to inform them to go to the venue to collect the bonus. Li Yundong and the others were all overjoyed, and all of them were beaming with joy. Su Chan was smiling so much that her eyebrows and eyes were almost squeezed together. Even Zi Yuan was smiling. But when Li Yundong and the others arrived at the venue, they didn't see Zheng Yuming and the others. Instead, a hot female secretary appeared and handed them a check with a smile. Li Yundong took the check and saw that there was only 800,000 on it. He immediately raised his head and asked in confusion, "Why only 800,000? Shouldn't it be 2 million? The female secretary said, "Yes, 2 million is before tax. After tax, it should actually be 1.6 million. At present, Mr. Zheng is a little short on cash, so he only has 800,000 funds. As for the other part of the funds, Mr. Zheng means to use the goods on hand to replace it. Goods? Li Yundong was surprised and said with a strange expression, what goods? Why does it look like a mafia transaction? Can other goods be used to pay off the debt? The female secretary said, there's nothing we can do. All the money that Chief Zheng can take out is here. This was the original plan. We didn't expect that an individual representative would win first place. The other large tea companies can also sell our goods quickly and exchange them for cash, so the other companies know about this. It's just that you guys, only then did Li Yundong understand. Oh my god, there were unspoken rules before the competition, and after winning first place, there was still unspoken rules. F***ck, this works too? Li Yundong was going crazy. He couldn't help but ask angrily, where can we buy so many tea leaves? The female secretary, there's no other way. This is the current situation. You can also choose to give up these tea leaves, but we will regard it as you automatically giving up the reward. Watch net. Ruan Hongling said angrily, this is fraud. Li Yundong suppressed his anger and said, aren't you afraid that we'll sue you? The female secretary pretended to be pitiful. We didn't want this either. The company didn't expect such a situation to happen. However, everyone knows this in their hearts. Who could have predicted that you would win the championship? Li Yundong said angrily, so you're blaming us? Seeing his anger, the secretary took a step back in fright and quickly waved her hand. I didn't mean that. Zhou Qin, who was standing to one side, suddenly said, what are you going to replace it with? Hearing her speak, the secretary felt as if she had been pardoned. She quickly said, of course, the best Tiguanyin tea. Zhou Qin thought for a moment and said to Li Yundong in a low voice, Zheng Yuming was able to get out of Lu Miaomiao's case, so he must have some official background. It's useless for us to sue them. It's better to take these things and think of another way. Li Yundong also asked in a low voice, do you have any ideas? Zhou Qin said in a low voice, there is a way. Li Yundong nodded and said decisively, well, I believe you. Let's do it this way. He said to the female secretary, okay, I promise you, but you have to write a contract. Otherwise, what if you deny it when the time comes? The female secretary said, of course. Even if you didn't say it, we would have signed a contract with you. As she said this, she waved to a staff member not far away and handed over 2 contracts. Li Yundong took them and handed them to Zhou Qin without looking at them. Zhou Qin carefully looked through the 2 contracts, then handed them back to Li Yundong and nodded. Li Yundong began to sign his name on the contract, but when he filled in the place of delivery, he was worried again. He couldn't help looking at Zhou Qin and asking, where should I fill in this place? Zhou Qin thought for a moment, then said to the female secretary, can you send goods from another place? The female secretary looked hesitant. Another place? Where? Zhou Qin said, Dongwu City. When the female secretary heard this, she quickly shook her head like a rattle. No, it's too far. Zhou Qin didn't stand on ceremony and said, do you want us to drag so many tea leaves back? We all know how unscrupulous you are in this matter. Since we have chosen to make concessions, shouldn't you also make concessions appropriately? Otherwise, we might as well break up. If we expose this matter, no one will end up well. The female secretary saw that Zhou Qin was like a lady from a noble family, and her words were even sharper. She didn't dare to neglect them and quickly said with a smile, I'll go and ask Mr. Zheng. She walked to the side and made a phone call to ask in a low voice. Then she came over and said with a smile, Mr. Zheng said it's okay. If it's a different place, then it's a different place. The goods will be delivered tomorrow, but we are only responsible for delivering the goods. After arriving at the destination, we are not responsible for moving the goods. Zhou Qin immediately said, "Okay, that's it." Seeing that the two of them had reached an agreement, Li Yundong also readily signed the contract. After the group of people came out of the venue, they looked at each other with different expressions. Su Chan looked resentful. 2 million yuan has suddenly become 800,000 yuan. I hate it. Wan Hongling also let out a long sigh. Alas, the assets have shrunk too fast. Even inflation can't be so fast. Zi Yuan smiled and said, money is just a worldly possession. We cultivators shouldn't care so much about gains and losses. Li Yundong also smiled and said, at least 800,000 yuan is out of thin air. 800,000 yuan is not a small amount. Don't be greedy. Seeing that Li Yundong didn't look worried, Su Chan asked curiously, Yundong, weren't you very angry just now? Why are you so happy now? Li Yundong smiled and said, Zhou Qin said that she has a way, so I believe that she has a way, right? As he said this, he winked at Zhou Qin. Zhou Qin smiled confidently and said, well, there is a way. Li Yundong, Wan Hongling, and Su Chan couldn't help but ask curiously, what is it? Zhou Qin said, didn't I say before that there are a few storefronts for rent in the commercial street of Dongwu City? We can buy that storefront and make it a high-end tea house. There is a lot of traffic nearby, and most of them are high-end consumer places. There are many white-collar workers going in and out. If we make an elegant and comfortable tea bar, there should be business. In addition, Zhenren Zi Yuan won first place in this year's tea culture competition. There will definitely be no problem promoting this living advertisement. Li Yundong was a rare genius in cultivation, but when it came to business, he was far inferior. Seeing that Zhou Qin had thought things through clearly, he couldn't help but be overjoyed and said, well, I picked up this disciple for free. I'm very happy. I've decided to hold a banquet. Let's go and have a big meal. As soon as he mentioned food, Wan Hongling laughed and said, okay, where are we going to eat? Li Yundong waved his hand and laughed. Let's go back to the Taoist temple and eat vegetarian noodles. As soon as he finished speaking, everyone else laughed. Only Su Chan was a little sad and unhappy. The group of people returned to the Taoist temple of Mount Tianlong. After dinner, everyone went back to their rooms. Li Yundong went to Su Chan's room alone. Before he entered the room, he saw the little girl sitting alone on a stone bench in the courtyard of the courtyard, holding her head with her arms. She was alone. Li Yundong smiled and walked over quietly. Then, he suddenly put his arms around the girl's waist and threatened her with a, ha. Girl, I want to rob you. Su Chan was startled, but when she heard Li Yundong's voice, she relaxed. She turned around and smiled. Sir, why are you here? Li Yundong pinched the girl's nose with a doting expression. I'm here to see my girl. The girl giggled and said, oh, and then didn't say anything else. Li Yundong saw that there was a hint of worry between her brows, and she was not as carefree as usual. His heart skipped a beat and he asked, girl, what's wrong with you? Li Yundong's soft question aroused Su Chan's worries. She raised her head, and her charming face was full of worry. Sir, do you not like me anymore? Li Yundong was shocked by the little girl's words. He held her in his arms lovingly and asked softly, you fool, why did you say that? Chapter 316. Go to watch net. Su Chan's eyes flashed as she looked up at him. Her red lips opened slightly, as if she had a lot of things on her mind to say, but she swallowed them back down. Watch net. 7 km. Li Yundong gently pinched the tip of the little girl's round nose and said with a smile, "What's wrong? If you have something to say, just say it. We've been together for a long time. What can't we say?" Su Chan was moved by his gentleness. She summoned up her courage and said, "Yundong, do you think I'm useless?" Li Yundong asked curiously, "Why do you say that?" Su Chan said in a daze, "Sister Zi Yuan is very powerful. Not only does she know how to do all kinds of housework, but she is also proficient in the art of tea. Without her this time, we couldn't think of a way to get money. Zhou Qin can also help you manage your business and give you advice, but I don't know anything." As the little girl spoke, her eyes were filled with tears of grievance and sadness. Li Yundong felt pity for her. He held the little girl in his arms and said softly, "You are really a silly girl. Of course, you can do something." The little girl asked with tears in her eyes, "What can I do?" Li Yundong smiled and said, "You will only cause me trouble." Su Chan burst into laughter, but soon she pursed her lips and more tears welled up in her eyes. She choked and said, "Since you've said that, I'm really useless." Li Yundong chuckled and hugged her like he was coaxing a child. "I'm just kidding. You know a lot of things." Su Chan wiped away her tears. "Tell me about it." Li Yundong grabbed the little girl's snow-white hand and pinched it one finger at a time. "Look, first of all, you know how to cultivate. Didn't you teach me how to cultivate? You're the one who introduced me to the school. You're my teacher. Just this alone is already very impressive." The little girl looked at him without blinking. When she heard him talking about the past, she felt warm in her heart and was slightly happy. "You were so stupid back then, even more stupid than me. You didn't know anything, and I was exhausted from teaching you. Watch net." Li Yundong nodded hurriedly. Yes. I'm the stupidest. If it weren't for you, I might have died of stupidity." Li Yundong suddenly laughed. "Do you know how pigs die?" Su Chan recalled the joke she had told Li Yundong the first time they had eaten at McDonald's. She immediately giggled and said, "I died of stupidity." Li Yundong chuckled and said, "Yes, you finally know? You see, I'm so stupid, but you still managed to teach me. Don't you feel a sense of accomplishment?" Su Chan was delighted at first, but then she pouted and said unhappily, "You're so stupid, but you're already so powerful. I'm still at the same place. Isn't that even stupider than you? You lied to me just now." Li Yundong hurriedly coaxed, "That's not right. It's precisely because I'm stupid that the clumsy bird has to fly first." You're a dignified fox immortal. Naturally, you'll catch up with me after a short nap. Su Chan knew that Li Yundong was saying this to coax her. She also knew that with Li Yundong's aptitude, as long as he continued to cultivate, she would never be able to catch up with him in this life. Fortunately, Su Chan felt that her becoming stronger was far less than Li Yundong's, which made her even happier. However, Li Yundong's cultivation had suddenly surpassed her, and she couldn't help him in the past. It was as if she had become a dispensable person. Su Chan felt lost and sad. Su Chan looked at Li Yundong eagerly and said, "Well, you don't have to coax me. I know all about it. I can't do housework, I can't cook, I can't do anything. The only thing I can do is cultivate. Now that you've surpassed me, I'm useless to you." Li Yundong pretended to be angry and glared at Su Chan, shouting in a low voice, "Nonsense. Why are you useless to me?" Su Chan pouted and tugged at the corner of her clothes with her fingers. "What can I do? When other cultivators see you with me, they all say that you've abandoned yourself. I'm so sad to hear that." Li Yundong laughed and said, "What others say has nothing to do with us. My family's little girl is very capable. They are envious, jealous, and hateful. Su Chan raised her head. What can I do? Li Yundong smiled and said, when we open a shop in the future, I can be the boss, and you can be the proprietress. Now I am the leader of the Fox Zen School. In the future, you can be the wife of the leader of the Fox Zen School. In the future, I will accept many disciples, and you can also be my wife. Li Yundong smiled as he described the future. Think about it. In the future, when we open a store, if business is good, we can open a second one. If we open a second one, there will be a third and a fourth one. Wow, when we open a chain store, you will be the big boss. You will have millions of men under your command, and everyone will respond to you with a single call. When people see you, they will respectfully call you boss. Wow, how impressive. Su Chan giggled and pressed her cheek against his broad and strong chest. She stared at him with sparkling eyes, listening to him with infatuation. Watch net. Li Yundong waved his hand and continued, why, don't you think it's impressive enough? Well, in the future, I will accept a large number of disciples, and then the disciples will accept more disciples, and then the disciples of the disciples will accept more disciples. At that time, they will spread their branches and leaves. Wow, there will be disciples all over the country. When they see you, they will call you Master's wife, Grandmaster's wife, and, well, Master's wife. What should you call her? Su Chan's cheeks were slightly red. She hid her face in Li Yundong's arms, revealing only one eye that was smiling like a crescent moon. She giggled and said, I don't know.